You have to just give it a card.
I'll go look at all of my cards. And you're the one doing first, yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah, I should go. Thank you for being. One more button.
Is Councilor Hart able to hear us? Did you ask her if she can?
She did not respond. Counselor Hart, can you hear us?
See here. Okay, figuring this out.
All right, good. She can hear us. Perfect. Thank you, Councilor. All right, let's call this meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody here for tonight's study session. This is not the regular meeting that will be next week, Monday. This is a study session in preparation for next week to make sure that we know what's going on. Council, so the format for tonight is it's kind of evolving because these study sessions are new, and so we're going to kind of work our way through that. It may change a little bit over time, and we're open to suggestions from each of you to how that can be improved. And same with staff, if there's ways that we can make that better, we'd certainly like to hear from you to try to do a better job. The agenda tonight, if it needs to be asked, if we're going to put that on a future agenda, I'm going to ask council. We can either do that by a roll call vote, or we can do it by a no objection type statement, to where I'll just ask, is there any objection to moving this forward and keeping this on next week's agenda? And if there is, then we can have a vote on that. But I'm assuming most of these things you're going to want to move forward to next Monday's regular meeting. Okay, what did not get put on this agenda is the item that to approve the agenda. So I'm going to do that first of all with roll call. Everybody who needs to be here tonight, as indicated on the list, is here. Councilor Hart is with us via Zoom. So I'll try not to forget that you're there, Councilor Hart, and give you opportunity to speak as well. And so as we look over the agenda, council, is there any objection to the agenda as it is for the evening?
No objection for me.
All right, hearing no objection, we will move forward with the agenda as presented. In future agendas, it will appear that we will approve the agenda before we start. So, all right, tonight's meeting is discussion only. There's not going to be any real action. So we're going to start with the Sunnyside Airport hangar development. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So want to give the folks in the crowd and the public a summary here. In 2021-22, the Port of Sunnyside and the City of Sunnyside advocated for grant funding through Senator Honeyford's office to support economic diversity and growth at the Sunnyside Municipal Airport. A budget proviso was approved in the previous Washington State Transportation budget and was directed to the Department of Commerce to administer, with the Port of Sunnyside being the grant recipient. The grant funding is specific to hangar development and project completion. The hangar will be a city-owned facility available for rent for aeronautical use. The project will construct 8 what they call T hangars. The Port of Sunnyside recently bid the project and the bids received in excess of available grant funding, and that's one of the problems here. So the lowest responsive and responsible bid received was in the amount of $1,447,744.18. The issue became the available grant funding was only $650,000. So that obviously left a wide funding gap of $797,744.18. So these bids were determined to be too high and have been rejected by the Port of Sunnyside. And the project is in process of being rebid and will include alternative bid options. The grant funding received will expire on June of 2025 and consequently must be expended prior to June. So with all that being said, there's an immediate regional need for aircraft hangars. The hangars at the Sunnyside Municipal Airport will lend to additional fixed base planes to increase the airport's base plane count. The FAA also does require airports to maintain a minimum of fixed planes to receive funding through the Airport Improvement Program. And the airport is currently at 12 base planes, with 2 of those not registered at the airport. The verified number of planes is 10, and the minimum number of aircraft to receive FAA funding is 9. This hangar development will allow for the opportunity to increase the base plane number while increasing revenue at the airport. And the Washington State Department of Transportation Aviation Division and WASDOT offers a loan program. It's called CARB, and the purpose of the program is to provide a funding source for airport development as funding programs are limited. And the program is loan only. The loan terms would be a 20-year fixed 2% loan. There's no penalty for paying the loan early. And Council, I just wanted to make sure, I know that was a long summary, but that gives you a lot of information to tee it up for our Public Works Director, Raul Sanchez, who's been working with HLA on this particular project. We think there's an economic benefit, there's an economic development benefit, and we certainly have a really energetic airplane group that's part of our committee and very committed to this process. So with that, Mayor, I'll tee it up for Raul.
Sanchez.
Thank you, City Manager, Council. So yeah, just like City Manager just said, this is what's going on out there. The port obviously came short in the funding for what's going to cost for a new T hangar. Tonight, Stephanie Ray here with HLA is here to go over the loan that we've been working with. And I'll turn it over to Stephanie with HLA.
Ms. Ray.
Mayor, members of council, city manager, public works director, thanks for having me here tonight. The summary in reality entails what we're looking to do, and it is to submit a application to WashDOT Aviation Division for a CARB loan to fill the funding gap. Now, the port is rebidding the project. All the bids are very high. And so in the application, we're looking to submit for $750,000. That doesn't mean that we will use all that 750. It's just to fill the gap between the 650 that the port already has and where the next responsive and responsible bidder will be. The interest rate is 20 years. It's at a 2%. Loan term is 20 years, interest rates at 2%. That does not start until project completion. It can be deferred up to 3 years. And again, the hope of this is to get additional planes at the airport. Roughly, hangar spaces can be leased for $300 to $350. And so over the 20-year period, the city would receive the revenue to pay back this loan. So happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Council members, questions for either Mr. Sanchez or Ms. Ray? Mr. Beeler?
How big is the hangar going to be? Approximately how many planes?
There'll be 8 base planes. There's 2 different types of hangars. There's box hangar and T hangars. T hangars are specific to the category of airplane, the design aircraft, which is a B1. And so we're thinking about like the Beach Barons and, you know, the props. And that's the prevalent aircraft here at Sunnyside at the moment.
Okay, Ms. Frausto.
Yeah, what is the projected revenue, for the next years? And then do you also have an idea of how much of that we're gonna be paying in interest?
There is an amortization schedule that WashDOT prepared as part of the packet. And so that would be in there. I don't have that number in front of me, but it is in the packet that you have. And then, so T-hangers are Sunnyside Municipal Airport already has T-hangers, but they're not city owned. And so we do not have a rate. We going through a rate analysis at the moment to determine the most competitive rate per hanger. At the moment, it's around $300 to $350. That'd be a month. And so 350 times 8 times 12 is our projected revenue.
Ms. Ripley.
Has there been anybody interested in renting them as of now?
Yes, in fact, at the last couple airport boards, the interest has been build it and we'll be there. So a number of these guys have already said we'll take one. Now we don't have an agreement in place, nor does the municipal airport have a hangar waiting list. However, every airport around you already has a hangar waiting list. And so hangars are a hot commodity for the aviation community, and they are not readily available at any of your nearby airports.
Further questions, Mr. Deputy Mayor?
So my understanding, there was an airport advisory meeting, I think last week.
Mhm.
Is there anything that, I think Councilor Vasquez, you're our liaison to that board. Is there anything that was discussed during that meeting that could provide more information?
Not from the board themselves. This is, one of the port's commissioners is part of the board. And he did cover a little bit about it on what he knew. There was some discussion going back and forth on the size. And that was really all that was discussed on there, with the board.
Was the recommendation to apply for this loan?
Well, like, Ms. Ray was saying here, they see a big need for coming from the pilot, from the board. They believe that building a hangar would again bring in a lot of interest for them, from what they know.
Deputy Mayor, may I?
Yeah.
Maybe it's important to understand that this has been in the works for about a year. So the port has been working toward development with this hangar project all of last year. And so this topic has been brought up to the airport board advisory quite a few times. Originally, it was a box hangar, and now it's been switched to T hangars to just increase the viability of the airport.
Oh, yeah, I remember being there, even before I was in council, I was involved with those meetings, and I remember this particular one. But what I don't understand is, how are we on two different pages, I guess, with the Port of Sunnyside? I had a meeting with Jay Hester last week, and he's actually going forward and asking Senator Nikki Torres to see if there's any more money that we could get from the state, and also asking the Department of Commerce to see if there's any way they can extend the grant funding expiration date. Why are we waiting for those conversations to come back before going on and getting a loan?
That is a great question. And so this particular loan program has a deadline of November 15th. The CARB loan is based on a biennium schedule. So this money will not come around again until July of 2025. And so at that point, it'd be too late to apply, as the $650,000 from the port would have to be rescinded back to Commerce if the executive director is not able to seek an extension. And so by applying, this gives you a preemptive approach. If that grant funding cannot get lined up, then you have the loan money. You can return the loan money if that other funding does come through.
Okay. Then anybody else?
I'm not seeing any hands up, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
So you're saying about $350 per section, I guess, right? Times 8. You're looking at $2,800 of revenue. That's if you have all 8 rented out. I was looking at the breakdown, the monthly payment is close to $4,300 for the loan. I mean, just help me understand, help me make it make sense to me, right? I mean, I have a piece of property that I'm gonna get a loan for, and I'm not even gonna produce enough to pay the loan back.
No, but you will. And what you're also ensuring is that you can continue to receive FAA money. So as soon as the airport falls below 9 based aircraft, there is no more FAA financial assistance for the airport until your fixed base planes come back up above 9. So that is the risk of not pursuing additional hangar space at Sunnyside Municipal.
Okay. So out of curiosity, do we have a plan, goals, vision for the airport?
We do. And this hangar development is consistent with the recently approved airport layout plan. That was a 1.5 year effort through between the city of Sunnyside and the Federal Aviation Administration through your consultant, Century West. We were a sub Century West. And so there is a 20-year, 40-year vision plan, economic development plan. And this particular hangar block is one of your next economic development steps.
Where can I find this layout plan? I couldn't find it on the website,
We have a copy there at City Hall.
but we don't have it on the website.
I don't think it is.
Why would it be?
Okay, Counselor Hart?
I'm just thinking we're kind of getting in the weeds about this a little bit. Did you lose me?
No, we can hear you fine.
Okay, fine. I just lost my screen then.
Now we may have lost you.
Mhm.
Are you still there, Ms. Hart? Okay,
Text her real quick.
if she's still showing on the meeting, but
Is she on the road or something? Maybe she might be losing connection.
I'm not aware. I don't know.
Thank you for finding the airport layout plan. That's the draft version, but still appropriate. In there will be some 11 by 17s that show the full development of the airport over time. And so this plan was thoroughly vetted by the Airport Advisory Committee, FAA, city staff. Keep going.
What year?
It was completed this year.
This year.
The city of Sunnyside is currently doing grant closeout with the FAA. So the official signature by the FAA was March or May of 2024. Oh, keep going. You're getting closer.
Ms. Hart, are you back yet?
Go, you missed, go back up, Jackie.
Mr. Mayor, she said she lost her screen and she's
So
trying to get.
go down to that next page. Okay, so up on the screen, you can generally see the master plan for the airport over the next several years. So what this does is add hangar space, add taxi lanes, ramps, everywhere on the airport that's feasible, that's currently within the airport boundary. So that property owned by the city of Sunnyside. There's a couple different models of this. So if you want to scroll to the next page, go back up. My apologies. Okay. Back down, Jackie. Keep going. Oh, okay. So in the final version, there is a blow up area of where this hangar is going to be going, which is on the south side of the east ramp, the east itinerant ramp.
On the one that it was up, is that area that was in blue?
Yeah, we'll get back to that 11 by 17 real quick. One more.
Right there.
Okay, so where you see, and I can't read from here, but your well is a square area south of the existing hangars. So just to the east of that, where you start seeing red and blue, that is where the hangar will be going. And there's also a site plan of that in your agenda packet. So you can see that layout.
Get back on.
So this is just a discussion that the idea is to bring this before you prior to that application due date to submit to WashDOT Aviation for consideration of loan funding. You would not necessarily be notified until around December. And then in which case, if additional funding becomes available, you can absolutely return this funding back to WashDOT. Likewise, if executive director for the Port of Sunnyside is able to extend your commerce deadline, then that's another option for the city.
Okay, further questions? Yeah, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
So the applications are due November 15th. Would it be too much to ask to wait for our November 11th meeting to approve? Or is it too close?
No, and in fact, this does need to come back to another council meeting for official resolution. This is just a discussion.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. We're not gonna bring it back to the 28th, right? Or maybe, or are we waiting till the 11th to bring it back for a vote?
Yeah, it'd be either the 28th or November 12th.
Oh, that's Veterans Day.
Tuesday? Is
The
the
11th.
11th a holiday? Yeah. Okay.
Veterans Day.
I think that's up to us. Ms. Vasquez.
I have a question. So the loan amount with the interest rate, how much is our payment looking like a month?
Like 43. Around there.
Sorry, I have to dig in here too.
It's a one-time yearly payment.
Annual payment?
51,000 a year.
Divide by 12.
Okay.
Okay.
It's on page 42 of your guys' agenda.
Yeah, because then the 350 times 8 is the 8 hangar slots times 12. It ends up being a total of 33,600.
And the unknown here is the port is rebidding this, and so we're going in for an assumed amount of $750,000. The only amount that we will actually take for the loan is what would be the funding difference between that lowest bidder and the $650,000 the port already has. So this could very well be 700 or 650,000. It could be much less.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I make a point to ask,
Yes.
Stephanie, I think this is one of the first questions I asked you about the hangars. Why is it only $350? I mean, we can barely get rent a garage for that. It seems like we could get more. Can you tell the public why?
Yeah, we'd
is
be
that
happy
number?
to. And so far, the city does not have an established rate for a T hanger. So that is part of an exercise that needs to be completed. The goal for the cost, the rental cost of the T hanger is to be competitive with your nearby airports that are similar in size to a general aviation. We are not a Port of Pasco, we are not Yakima, and so we will not be able to compete with them. But that would be part of that rate analysis. WashDOT Aviation, even during our conference call with the work instructor, cautioned us to make sure that our rental cost is high enough so that they're not used as storage facilities. So that would be part of the consideration in looking at the nearby airports. If they are renting out for 400, we will be renting out for 400.
Thank you.
So the nearest airport to compete against would be Prosser?
Yes, so Prosser and Richland have a little bit of a different dynamic where Sunnyside is more set up for some of that crop dusting operation. The airspace at Sunnyside is unrestricted compared to when you get near the larger airport, so that will attract kind of more of your rural pilot. So we'd be more similar to like Othello or Ephrata or even a Ritzville. We do have the rates for Prosser and Richland though, as well as Pangborn and 7 other airports in Eastern Washington.
Further questions?
So besides crop dusting, what other businesses can we attract in Sunnyside then based on the airport size?
Your airport size, and the type of aircraft coming in is limited a bit by your runway. However, the crop dusting, the air tractor, is the largest aircraft. Your airport also serves life flight, medevac. We've had some military operations out here before as well. And so what we would be looking for would be to attract more of the Mooney aircraft, the small corporate aircraft to come in, as well as fuel cells and more of like the mechanic or aircraft type industry. Thinking big would be more like a Cub Crafters type operation.
I know we have in the past had small corporate jets come in and out of here. Some regularity, not huge numbers, but in the past we have had that. When I lived closer to the airport, I was hearing them all the time.
That's correct.
So I guess, my concern is if our permanent based airplanes here drop below that threshold of 9 planes, then we lose funding from the FAA. And how much of that, how much is that funding?
We currently receive $150,000 in entitlement monies a year. And in addition to that, it's called a sponsor, but being the airport owner, the sponsor is able to go compete with other airports for a pot of money called discretionary money, which habitually is how we pay for improvements at Sunnyside Municipal. And so you would automatically lose $150,000 a year, and you would lose the opportunity to compete with other airports for that discretionary pot of money.
And we have a lot of unrealized potential at our airport. Currently, there's room for additional improvements and expansions and different things that we can do. But if we don't get that FAA money plus that discretionary money, that's going to severely curtail our ability to expand and develop our airport the way that I think that we would like to. I think we do want to realize at least some of that potential and take advantage of that. So I guess that's a concern that we need to think about as well when we look at this. Definitely being able to make the payments. As Deputy Mayor said, we don't want to take out a loan and then lose money on every payment. We want to be able to capitalize on what we've got. I do like the idea that we can get this loan, and if the port is able to secure other funding, then we can return the loan, and it's not something that we're obligated to. And also, if all of a sudden things go wildly positive, we can also pay it off early if we wish, and there's no penalty for doing that. So there are some positive there. I am a little concerned about a loan amount that's going to end up, we're going to be negative $20,000 at the end of every year. That is concerning, but what's the potential for making that up?
I will add that currently with CARB, there's only $1.2 million left in this year. So you are competing with other airports. There's currently 4 applications in for the same money. So even by submitting an application, there's no guarantee that you will receive the funding.
Is there a chance that we'll receive a smaller amount, that they'll just split it, or do they just go with the full amount for each applicant?
They go with the full amount.
Very good. All right, council, further questions or comments? All right, well, thank you very much. This will either appear on our next agenda or in November. So we will look at that again later. Thank you for your information. Item B is the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Application Resolution. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This again involves our Public Works Department. The Washington State Department of Health opened its annual construction loan application cycle on October 1st, and the application deadline is November 30th of this year for the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, which is commonly called the DWRF program. As discussed at previous water system plan presentations at the August 26th and September 9th City Council meetings, The approval and adoption of the city's water system plan is necessary to be eligible to apply for the DWSRF program. The water system plan was submitted to DOH on September 12th of this year, and DOH has confirmed that they will be able to provide tentative approval prior to the DWSRF application deadline. So 2 actions will need to be taken tonight by council to allow a DWSRF application to be submitted this year, which I think we could scratch that because we're not going to make any decisions tonight. This will be at the subsequent is really what that should have said. The first action will be to pass a resolution adopting the water system plan, which, well, I believe we've already done, right? So that is in place and moving forward through DOH.
Well, the resolution is to adopt the actual final.
Right, and that, because we've already done the preliminary work, you know, before, I don't want to confuse things. So, and I think what you'll need to know also, council, so DOH staff has committed to providing that tentative water system plan approval prior to November 25th. So that's how I'll set it up for Raul, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you. And so, yes, just like city manager was saying, so the intent here is just so that we don't miss the deadline for the SRF application is to kind of go over the resolutions that need to be taking place prior to the deadlines, so that we can get that in there. By having the resolutions already done, we don't have to wait for another council meeting to try to bring it, and then because we're up against the calendar. And Stephanie's here too, if there's any questions, because there's a lot going on here. They've been working on the water system plan, so if there's anything, any questions?
All right, council members, questions or comments for Mr. Sanchez or Ms. Ray? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Are these funds for the rehab on the wells?
So yes, this would be for well 6 and 7 applying for, this application would be for that.
Just for that?
Mhm.
And can you remind me what the amount was for?
Roughly it was around 1.4-ish.
I can address that if you like.
Yeah.
Mayor, members of council, public works, thank you again. The anticipated cost for rehab of well 6 and 7 is 1.7 million. The DW SRF loan terms is 20 years at 1.75%. And those loan payments would start after project completion. So the city currently has an existing DW SRF loan payment that is anticipated to drop off. And the plan is that then this one would generally replace the current one.
Further questions? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
What fund do we use to pay back this loan? The water fund?
Water fund.
Okay, and then how healthy is that water fund right now? I mean, it's not.
We're working through that.
Okay. Yeah, our water fund's been in a bit of a bind after last year's 6th Street project was self-funded by the city, I think. Is that correct? Yeah.
So if nobody else has any questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
So you say that the loan payback doesn't start until after the completion of the project. When is that gonna happen? When is that anticipated to happen?
So DWSRF accepts applications only on a yearly basis, so each November. The funding won't become available until the end of 2025. And then we'll be looking at about another year and a half. So you're looking at around 2027.
So we have some time to kind of fix our water fund? Okay.
Mr. Beeler.
Is this the 2 wells sediments are coming up in it?
Correct. Yeah, well 6 and 7 that need to be rehabbed. Correct.
6 and 7.
Is Ms. Hart back?
Yeah.
Ms. Hart, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you
Do
hear me?
do you have any questions?
I'm just to, sorry. The money that we're looking for a loan here, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so this money, as I understood you just now, will be it's a competitive thing, so we're seeking the money now. Should be available by the end of 2025. And the project itself for the rehab of 6 and 7 should be completed, estimate around 2027. Did I
Correct.
hear that right?
You did.
You did.
Okay, so then, this seems like a kind of a no-brainer. Let's do it. Because by that time we should know, I should hope, what the what our water fund is looking like, so that if there's any prepay, we should be in fine shape for that. Is that not possible?
Yes, that is correct. And by applying for the money, it doesn't, how do you want to say that? The city still has the option of looking for grant funding for other funding sources to supplement the DWSRF. So there are options. With DWSRF, though, it is 1 year only. So by not applying, you're pushing out your wells for another year.
But that's not a good plan.
No, one well has iron bacteria and needs to be flushed consistently. The other well is bringing up sand and debris, and so both wells are relatively not available for use.
So it's in our best interest to move ahead with this.
All right. Further questions from
Thank you.
council? Yes, my comments on this one would be that the water fund isn't in its strongest position, and yet these wells are imperative, and we've known this for some time. The fact that it is paid out of the water fund, and we do have some time to build the water fund back up. What kind of income do we get monthly, more or less, Mr. Sanchez, from the water fund into the water fund?
Okay.
Yeah, I should have texted you earlier on that one.
So for 2024, we have currently budgeted for all revenue into the water fund from user rates and or utility hookups is $3.9 million.
Okay. And of course, we've got the expenses that go along with that on the other side of the ledger, but
So everything that funds the entire water system comes from user rates.
correct. So there is a potential of building up over the next 2.5 years, essentially, before we have to start paying that loan, building up some decent reserves anyway to get started. And it's going to be replacing a payment that we're already currently making, correct? That payment's kind of come to an end here fairly soon. Do you have an idea when that's going to be? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and this is a completely separate issue from the fund in the general fund and the issues there. So it's a completely separate question. It's completely separate revenues. So we can't get those to overlap. So go ahead, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
So, I mean, don't get me wrong, right? I'm not against doing these wells. I definitely rather do these rehabs than do a whole new well, because it's more expensive, right, to do a new well. But we definitely need to get, I guess, a hold of the expenses and the revenues, and I just don't want to sit here 2 years from now and say, hey, we're still in our water fund is still in the negative. It's still having issues. So if we have a good plan going forward, I definitely am on board. I know we have Debbie, I know we have Mike, the rest of you guys here, but let's definitely get a good plan going forward and making sure that we don't wait around 2 years and hey, we're still in the hole.
It's actually 2027.
2027, okay. For 3 years.
And the deputy mayor brings up a very good question. As we do an analysis of our water system, do we have any other looming expenses that we have to be aware of that could become an issue within the next 2.5 years?
The only thing that we've been going over, obviously, at some point is to discuss the new well. Outside of the wells that we have now, these are the only two that are in this condition. The rest of them needed some a different chlorination system, which we did at the beginning of the year. So they're up and going. It's just these two, obviously due to funding, we haven't been able to do anything going forward until now, if this is doable.
So we don't see anything that's looming in the future other than these two wells.
And a new well at some point, yes.
Plus a new well somewhere there.
Well, yes, and a transmission line with a reservoir and all that, but
Mhm.
that's another thing
That's
that's in our water system plan that,
But that's one we can plan. That's not gonna come up and become urgent all of a sudden unless we get some massive growth in the city. Yeah, okay.
yeah, that's all in the plan.
Because I guess my concern, and it's kind of related to what the deputy mayor said, is I don't want to all of a sudden be surprised by something that we didn't anticipate. And, we sort of got hit by that last year with the street project. And when the funding didn't come in and we decided, okay, we can do this ourselves. But then now we have a well crisis. And I don't want to have that happen again.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I will advise council that the majority of water for the entire city is coming off of one well at the moment, well number 9. So unanticipated emergency would be if well number 9 goes down, the city would not have the reserve capacity to provide water.
Is that a risk?
So that's wells 6 and 7 provide that redundancy for the city's water system.
Very good. All right. Further questions or comments? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
That's kind of concerning, right? I mean, we only have one well. Didn't we just do some work on a few other wells? What's going on with the other wells?
Well number 9 is the city's highest producing well, approximately 1,000 gallons a day, 1,000 gallons a minute, well, it's coming out of that well. The city has other wells, they're just not as high producing as well number 9.
Further questions? All right, thank you. Moving on. Item C, Community Center Report. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So joining us this evening from the Community Center is Parks and Rec Supervisor Mary Ramirez, along with Recreation Coordinator Samantha Horhood. So this was a great opportunity when I was speaking with the ladies to showcase what they've been doing in 2024, as well as the activities with the Parks and Recreation Commission. So I've been talking with them quite a bit lately. So that's how I'll tee it up.
All right, ladies, welcome.
Thank you for having us. So I'll start off by saying hi, my name is Mary and I'm the Recreation Supervisor. We were here and asked to speak a little bit about the community center and how we oversee activities and sports and also the pool during the summer. I've been working with the city for 9 years, 7 in the utilities and 2 at the community center. So when I took this position, there was no sports activities at the moment, little activities happening at the center, and from my understanding, no open gym. So we go to the next slide. There we go. So as of now, right now, we have our daily hours, which is from 10 in the morning till 4 p.m., but we are there. Staff is there from 8 in the morning till 5 p.m. We do have daily people that come in, like in trust. The school district comes in with their LAC program on Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 11. We do have kids who drop in after 2:30 when high school is out. We have designated walk-ins daily. We do kind of like a daytime shelter for some of the community members. We do have a few homeless show up, and with the leftover stuff that we have had, we like the food, we do ask them if they're hungry, and we do sometimes prepare it for them and give it out. Right now we have a schedule of yoga from 8 to 9. We have open gym from 10 to 12. Then we take lunch, and then 1 to 4 is open gym again. We're hoping to start soccer with an indoor, and hopefully that will start soon. Let's see.
should start shortly. I'm working on all the logistics right now with our insurance, and then they directed me to also consult with the attorney, but that was discovered today, so working on it.
And then we do also have open gyms for like pickleball and basketball after hours. So the events that we have during the year, we do have Easter, which is our first big event that we put on. We have had a great turnout and we've had a good number of businesses donate for this event. We place about 19,000 filled eggs. We get leadership and key club kids from the high school to come help fill the ones that are empty. And they help us. And then the day of, we also have them help us in sections with the kids so that way they can go out and pick up eggs. The mother-son dance is something that I started. It has been a great turnout. We've had wonderful businesses helping with donations. It's been successful. The first year, we were kind of nervous. We had only sold 9 tickets, but at the door, we ended up selling a total of 6. So we had a wonderful turnout. Father-daughter dance is another one that we put on. Great turnout, great support from the community with donations and everything else. Spooky Fall Festival is our second biggest event that we put on at the community center. This is another free event that has more than 30 booths handing out candy and have some sort of game that the kids are able to play. We get donations from our stores like Grocery Outlet, Walmart, Fiesta Foods, all our big chains. We also have bakeries who donate cakes, cupcakes for our cakewalk. We have a DJ who donates his time to play music for everyone to enjoy. We get prizes from customers. We get prizes for the costume winners from our local businesses like the barbers for haircuts or Dutch Bros for drinks, anything like that. Our Thanksgiving meal is our next event we put on for the community. We feed over 500 people for $2 a plate. We have lots of help from our Key Club students and our Lion Club members. Our local businesses also donate to help make this possible. We have Bonvinos who helps cook the 30 turkeys that also get donated to us. The end of the year, the last 3 years, we've helped with the Festival of Trees. The city of Sunnyside and the hospital, from my understanding, has always partnered and they've always put that at the community center. So since we're around, we help decorate with that and help with whatever assistance they need. So in 2023, we started working on bringing the sports back to the program. We started working on T-ball. I brought back the sport from the recreation program. And speaking with Miguel Puente from Cal Ripken, he was excited for us to start bringing back T-ball and take it from him. I also applied for a Parker Youth Grant and received $1,500 to help start this youth program. We also sought sponsors for the t-shirts, and we also did. I tried to do at the end of this T-ball season a little get together for them, so we would get donations for the food. We had 120 kids turn out for that first year and had a little small parade with the fire department, police department, and the Sunnyside Grizzly at cheerleaders. 2024, we introduced Coach Pitch to the program alongside T-ball. Coach Pitch, we had 35 kids turn out. It wasn't as big as we anticipated, but we did not cancel the program. And we hope to grow this program for the future. And T-ball was another great successful year. We had 118 kids turn out. The next sport we work on is soccer. And that was introduced back into recreation. We started last year in September and ended in the middle of October. It was a great turnout, 81 kids. This year we upped it to August because October was a little chilly for the kids, but we also had a great turnout this year. So our two or future ones that we plan to bring in is indoor soccer, and flag football. And we've been kind of going over soccer a lot, and we've been in discussion with Mike as well to hopefully get a soccer field up and going somewhere here in Sunnyside at one of the parks.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, I'd like to interject. We talked to Lobos on, I think it was Thursday or Friday, Samantha. I can't quite remember. All the days are running together. But one thing that we decided to do was allow them to practice with their players from ages 5, I think all the way up to 14, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays in our community center. And this will affect 150 kids that play soccer. So, the deal is basically they'll have to have background checks for all the coaches that come in, and we'll operate it a lot like the open gym session. So there'll be a lot of trust there. And Lobos assured us that they'll treat the facility with respect, which I have no doubts if you know Adrian and his coaches and the people associated with his organization. So they walked out of there really excited. And I think we walked out of there really excited because I really feel soccer can have a huge impact on the kids in Sunnyside. So I feel like the community has asked council for that and to give more access, and the ladies at the community center were more than willing to help out in that process. So I appreciate it. So it's a great first step, I feel like, and I think Lobos couldn't have been happier, and neither could we have. So thanks.
Next slide. Go ahead, next one. So starting off in 2022, I did start in August, so I was closing up the pool, closing up summer camp. I did 2 referee clinics and 1 ump clinic, closing out 2022. Summer was approaching as well during all these events that were happening, so I had to find a lifeguard instructor. So that was not easy to try and get an instructor to come down and schedule them while school's going to get the kids certified before school's out. Was quite a bit of a challenge, but we got it done. So I found an instructor to certify lifeguards and to recertify existing guards that their certificate was expiring. And then we were also getting ready for the summer camp. And that is held at the community center. It's for 7 weeks. We get 10 camp leaders, and the camp leaders work on a weekly themed schedule. And so they work on the schedule, what our weekly theme is going to be. And then we also schedule with police, fire, the librarian here, and some of the teachers I reach out to bring in their therapy dog. The kids love it. So they come and visit with the kids. We do all that. So we hire 22 lifeguards and 10 camp leaders to get that summer get up and going. And we're starting to add monthly crafts to our calendar, which Samantha has. She started one in October.
Yeah, so, I've been here almost 3 months, and went straight into soccer, and then soccer was over. So I was like, I want to do something with a budget of $0. So I started a monthly craft and had a good turnout, 42 people for the first one. So I'm really excited about that. Made some really cute ghosts, and so they got to create it with clay, and then they got to paint it a week later when it dried, and it was really cool seeing everybody's creativity.
Yeah, and then I also get with the fire department so that way we can get everybody with their first aid and get them certified in that. And we started doing a concession at the pool, so I run up and go get items for those. Next item or next slide.
Summer.
Oh, yeah. Well, continuing into summer, there's a lot that happens during the pool season and then just in general with the community center. The other thing I also wanted to just let you guys know, it is kind of tough with one, but back and forth, but we've gotten there. slowly. And now with Samantha being there, hopefully we can get everything up and going. Next slide. The other thing we also do is we network. We network with WRPA, NRPA, United Unidos. I joined Rotary. We go to a lot of resource fairs during the school to get our volunteer handouts out and whatever activities or events that we are doing. So we do that. I collaborate with the school. I've met with Ryan Maxwell and Dave Martinez, and they are a big help as well in any events that I need. Let's see, our businesses play a big role in all our events, the high school students as well as Miss Sunnyside. The Girl Scouts come out and help us as well. Let's see, anything else you want to add to that? No.
No. I mean, and then working with different program representatives, for example, the flag football, like Prosser does the NFL flag football. So I've been meeting with the representative for that program to see how to get that going for us and see if there's an interest in it.
So again, our Recreation and Community Center relies on our wonderful sponsors and our volunteers. Without them, we couldn't be able to do it and our activities that we put on. So a big thank you to them.
Seeking sponsorship isn't always the easiest, but we've had a great community and people have been pretty open to helping us when we ask them.
Yeah. So, yep, and then we also work on, we have, I have a Parks and Rec board meeting. We meet once a month, the first Thursday of the month. So we get that all prepared, the agenda and the minutes, the website updated, getting that out. So everybody is aware and it's open to the public. So anybody is more than welcome to join us. Challenges. So challenges has been volunteers. I know for soccer, we had a little rough start there because we're having trouble finding refs, even for the littles, for the sports portion. And coaches, as you know, we're getting these programs going, the parents don't want to coach. And so we try and get them, you know, hey, well, if you help us out here, then one of your kid can play for free, just to get that incentive out to them. So
We did have a surprising number of coaches that were not parents and just coached
And
for
just
the sake of
coached.
coaching, which was really good.
and then competing with other league sports. So, I mean, recreation is the beginning of everything. It is the teaching of the sport and just introducing it to the kids. So, I know a lot of parents ask if, you know, is this competitive? And no, it's not competitive. This is an introduction to the sport, and we're hoping to grow it and bring everything back to recreation. So through everything, one thing is, like I said, we've had open gym, we're running the basketball, pickleball. The community center is being rented for birthdays, other community events hosted by other organizations. And sometimes it's even used by our local police for trainings, and our fire department in the parking lot. Another thing we did, which was a first for me, is we worked on Upland Park, which needed some attention, and we added new equipment and hope to add a parking lot to this location. So that was a first, and I think it turned out well. So yeah, I feel blessed that I've been I was blessed to have this opportunity to bring back activities and events that have died over the last several years. With the help of the community, our goal is to get back to where it used to be. I started from scratch, and hopefully with the help of the community and business, big or small, we can get that back there. Any help they give, it's tremendous. It's a big help. You may not think so, but the $25 donation that we get to help purchase candy, cookies, hot dogs, hot dog buns, water, pop, or any decorations for events helps. The gift certificates we receive from the local businesses, whether it's for a free burger, drink, haircut, or for the barber shops, helps out a little boy or little girl that maybe could not afford it. Our goal is to add more activities to the center and get more volunteers to help coach and ref. The other struggle we have was when we first started, we had no sports equipment when we were introducing these sports. So I did have to start from scratch. Storage is another one as well, and hopefully we can get there to where we can add storage to the center. I did lose my conference room and transformed it into a storage area for now, but hopefully, like I said, in the future, we can get something out there and start using another building for storage. I hope you understand these last 2 years haven't been an easy road, but by networking, we have slowly been able to make great relationship with the business to help with sponsorships and hope to continue with those.
Thank you very much. Council members, do we have questions or comments for our Parks and Rec directors? Ms. Ripley.
It's on there of like little activities.
Oh, yeah, cool. Ms. Ripley.
I was wondering if you guys have sign in and sign out sheets for, okay. And another thing,
Go
I
ahead.
wanted to comment on Upland Park. It's awesome. I have been growing up in that area and there is kids playing there all the time. Plus the adults are there with them and it's really being utilized. It's a nice park.
I was nervous.
And I would second that. I drive by there every day because I live over there and yeah, that park is always being utilized. The equipment is fantastic. It has my grandchildren's seal of approval, which I don't know what that means to anybody, but they liked it. They had a lot of fun over there. So, yeah, that was a great project. So other questions or comments? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
So you guys have a mission statement and a vision statement on the website. When was that last updated?
I believe when Gwen was here, so 22.
22? Have you guys considered taking it to the advisory board or tweaking or?
Yeah.
Further questions or comments? Ms. Frausto, is your hand up or are you poised, ready to write?
I have a few, but I want to make sure we all take turns asking the questions. So the hours of operation have now moved from 8 to 5, or they've always been 8 to 5, but we've always been there 8 to 5. It's just the doors were open from 10 to 4. Again, that was previously from me entering, so, but that's what the hours of operation were.
Was there a reason why the doors were opening at 10 versus 8?
I'm gonna say maybe because there was only one person, so maybe in the morning he was doing or she was doing what she needed, and then I really can't say, to be honest.
But all staff was there at 8 a.m. or they've been there either at 8 or 10?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And I asked because, you know, along the way, and we've talked about this in our meetings too, is there.
We got a duck in here.
Turn it off, Tom. Just with some feedback, and you know, I always I bring it to Mike and everything about just accessibility to our center and making sure that it is being utilized and optimized as much as possible. Another question that I have is, I did step out, so I'm not sure if I missed it, but did we talk about budget and how that budget has evolved over 2022 to 2024? And will we project that to be maybe in 2025? Because we are in the middle of our budget hearing. So it'd be good to understand where we are and where we might be able to take some of y'all's feedback.
So budget wise, I mean, we've been given the amount. It would be nice if we could get a little bit more to bring back some of these programs. I know in 22, I looked up the numbers and what was brought in was about 29,000 between the programs that were happening. And I know it was COVID in 22, but it was being rented out for testing. And then when we've opened up back up and Gwen started doing some events and getting things going, revenue came in at 29. 2023, I looked it up and it was, we had brought in about 44. With it being fully used for the whole year. So
Okay. Is that the same for 2024?
we were in two systems, so I was trying to get those numbers. I don't have an accurate number for you though. But it has been rented and it has been ongoing still for the same as 2023. So I'm projecting hopefully a little bit more. I'm gonna let you take a turn.
I think,
Deputy Mayor.
nobody else. When was the last time you met with the school district and how often do you meet with them?
I met last year with them and I'm actually supposed to meet, set an appointment with Ryan Maxwell to discuss now further with the program for indoor soccer. I'm hoping to talk with him and get maybe some gyms.
I really think there's a lot of possibilities there where you could definitely meet with the school district a little bit more often than just last year. I'm thinking, you know, you do have somebody at the.
Well, I do talk, I'm in talks all the time with Dave Martinez. Me and him do talk.
Okay, so one of the issues that you have is that you don't have volunteers, right? So you know, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think our seniors need to do volunteer hours in order to graduate. So I think that's something that maybe you guys could.
Yes, and I do have emails sent out to leadership, which is Peabody, the Key Club, and also Francisco Ramirez. So I am in contact with them. I also include Dave Martinez and all that. So I do ask them to send anybody that they need, who needs hours, to send them our way.
And
then we do go to their resource fairs when they invite us. So we do hand out our paperwork to them so that way they can come and volunteer for any events or any hours that they need.
how many of the high school seniors have you seen this year?
Well, we started in Easter, so all of Key Club. I don't have a correct number, but I do get quite a bit of seniors.
Miss,
Yes, Ms. Hart, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mayor Boersma.
I was going to ask you next, so you go ahead, Ms. Hart.
Thank you. I'm curious, are you now putting away things like, I noticed that the soccer nets were gone from the Tina Noth Park. Are we putting things away now?
Yes, our soccer program ended at the end of September for outdoor.
Outdoor. So that's why we're beginning the indoor sometime in January, is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
We're working on indoor soccer and now to get that up and going. Again, that's new and it's going to be introduced to us. So we have to purchase all the equipment and get everything here. So
how many, I'm just curious because I know the soccer, are you going to use that? Are the community center gym is not really, what do you call it? There's a word for it. It's something about uniform, like the high school gym. It's not configured in such a way as to have lots and lots of tournaments in there. You know, soccer tournaments or stuff, but they're going to use half courts.
no, we're going to schedule depending on how many teams and how many kids we get, then we'll schedule those out.
Okay. I did want to congratulate you on the amount of work that you have been able to do with the amount of money that you've your budget and also with the amount of personnel that you have there in addition to all of the volunteers you're able to. It's a big project which you've undertaken, and I've got to say, since you got started even there in the middle of COVID, well, it was called COVID Park because that's where everybody went to get their shots. I just want to congratulate you on the amount of work and that you've been able um, to, to give community activities to both adults and children. So kudos to you. I'm just
Thank
going to
you.
say that, kudos.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? So, go ahead.
Go ahead if you have one.
I'm waiting until the end, so you go ahead, Ms. Fausto.
All right, well, I got a few. So, going off of your question, Deputy Mayor, about, recruiting volunteers, it definitely has been a problem since we've been in conversation about recruitment. So and it's unfortunate sometimes when we're trying to blast out information and we're trying to recruit, but then it just kind of stays there in the line of communication and we're not getting these volunteers in.
And we're not stopping and we're not, like, we continue to try. We're not going to stop reaching out to try and get volunteers. And it's all across the board. It's with even all the other leagues.
Yeah, and we've been talking about developing an outreach program in these Parks and Recs meeting. Have y'all taken some time to really cultivate an efficient and effective outreach for volunteers? What is the process right now? I know that there was a feedback survey going around and circulating on social media via our Facebook. What has been some of that feedback? It seems that maybe addressing our current application process, reviewing and analyzing, and then making sure that we're trying to make it as easy as possible for our constituents, because somewhere along the way, we're not getting the people. I know the documents are translated, correct me if I'm wrong, into Spanish, or are they not?
I did translate them.
Just recently? So they were not translated. They have never been translated. That's a problem because we're living in a community where we're 86% Latino, and about 60% of our community members are monolingual speakers. So that definitely has to take priority. And it's also part of effective outreach, right, and communication. So going back to creating an outreach plan, have we already started maybe formulating something or being part of a discussion of something that's just really a strategic plan along the way?
I've been working on it a little bit, just when I have time. So I did make a link, so it's accessible by the website because it wasn't originally accessible via the website. So it is under our volunteer section on the website now. There's a link there, but I have not gotten approval for this. Like, it's an HR document. So with the transitions, I have not gotten my translation approved to upload. So I'm waiting on that. I recently made a lot of like flyers. I'm trying really hard to do the bilingual. I actually made my PowerPoint bilingual, but it looks like they only played the English one. But so I did make flyers, both front and back have Spanish and English. And then the survey, 34.5% of people who answered it said they were interested in volunteering. So hopefully getting that, like, oh, volunteering is an option. Hopefully we'll get some more, but that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and I know that I've been in conversation with a lot of community members, and a lot of our community members don't even know where to begin with, filling out the application. And I know we have people that are eager to volunteer because I've been in conversation with them. I think some of y'all have been in conversation with them along the way. So I feel like there's some eagerness there and willingness. It's just a matter of connecting now with our community.
I think one of the barriers, just from my perspective, is the level of intensity that the volunteer application is, because they do have to go through what I believe is a national background check to volunteer with the community center, just because we do have children. So I know that just honestly filling out the entirety of the volunteer form, submitting your social security number, driver's license, or some kind of identification, it's a long process. And I think that might be a bit of a barrier, but fortunately, it is necessary for the safety of everyone.
Yeah, and then just another idea, and I know we've talked about it, but just for the record, I know we've been in collaboration with Sunnyside High School and some of the administrators there. And I think it came up in conversation, and I think you were there, Counselor Vasquez, where reaching out to maybe the superintendent and the board and figuring out, I believe that there's a number of hours that our students have to meet of volunteer hours. So I don't know what their policies are around that or some of those requirements are. But maybe even an idea, proposing an idea that X amount of those hours have to be in community or have to be with the city, right? So then it provides more of an incentive for them to be like, to want to reach out to the community center, to both of you and say, you know, I have X amount of hours to fulfill because they have to be with the city, with my community. And so hopefully maybe getting more people to show up, and more of our youth to show up in that sense.
Okay, further questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
So I'm a numbers guy, right? And we heard great turnouts, right? The mother-son dance, great turnouts, the father-daughter dance, great turnout, but no numbers. I was there last year for the father-daughter dance and there was maybe 10 dads. And I looked back to see why there wasn't any dads. And there just wasn't any advertisement. There just wasn't any Facebook post, nothing, right? So we're spending all this time, effort, money for something that only 10 dads showed up for. You're doing a better job now, right? I see it more online, but I would kind of like to see the numbers, like for the summer program, right? We spend all this ARPA money. How many kids showed up? You guys hired, I believe, 6 or 7 employees to be there Monday through Friday. We spend a lot of money there. I mean, what are the numbers? What kind of participation are we?
In front of me for those, but I can get them to you.
Yeah, what kind of participation, right? I mean, for the soccer, what kind of participation did we have for the T-ball? You know, what kind of participation did we have? For indoor soccer coming up, what's the anticipated date that we're gonna start, right? Because other leagues already started soccer and the problem and one of the challenges you said, Mary, that you have is that the other leagues are competitive. But that's, I think, the downfall too, because if they have a new kid that's never played soccer, the coach is going to drop them. So now they don't have anywhere to go. So now,
That's why I'm saying we're starting now and introducing all these new sports. So again, it was new. Indoor soccer, I don't believe was part of the community center, just because I believe they tried it in the past and there was damage to the community center in the gym. And so they stopped it, from my understanding. So now that the gym has been secured, we're gonna introduce it back and see how it goes.
a question about the gym, the seating there that you guys have, do they work? I've never seen them open. And is that something that we're gonna have available for the parents to sit or whoever's there to watch the kids? Okay.
Okay, Counselor Vasquez.
Do you guys manage your own community center Facebook page? Okay.
Are there other questions or comments?
Just gonna say, like, for soccer, there, I want to say there's roughly 65 in that zone, kids, that were actively able to play. We had to drop a few because we didn't have enough sign up for the older kids. And I had 42 people sign up for.
Okay.
Just for numbers, if you wanted.
Thank you. Yeah, and I mean, if we could get numbers for all this, because I mean, budget season is coming and we need to know how many kids we're actually, you know, servicing. The ARPA money, you said for the storage, I believe we have some ARPA money set aside for storage?
There was money set aside for that, but after we found out after our financial situation, that ARPA went into different places now.
Okay.
That were more priority than that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is important. And that was one of the things that was allocated to, but after finding out, that was reconsidered.
Gotcha.
Okay, further questions or comments? Ms. Fausto.
Oh, okay. This is probably to you all and to Mr. City Manager. I'm not a big numbers person, like Deputy Mayor, but I'm getting there. And what we do love to see as a community and the body here of council members is progress or measurement of progress, right? And in any job, right, they're always asking you, what's your progress since last year? Can you show me the numbers? Can we contrast them from the previous year? Have we been measuring that progress outside of an Excel sheet, a budget? I mean, do we have data and do we have anecdotes from community, both quantitative and qualitative data, where we're measuring the progress of since 2022 to 2024, and then again where we project to be in 2025. I think that's a good visual to have, like for even just your internal staff as well. But then also a report out of this is everything we've been doing and we've been improving on slowly but surely. And this is what we need to do in order to get to here, right? I don't know if that exists. I have not seen it on our website, but I think it would be a good standard of practice to begin both internally in our departments to show out to community, and we get an idea of how good and how well we're progressing, and maybe where council can come in and step in and say, hey, we need a little bit more monies here during our hearing, or maybe this is the structure that we need to consider moving forward to. So we make sure that the community center is as successful as it can be. Y'all are successful as you can be, because your success is the community's success. These kids need these programmings. These families need these programmings. We all need access to this in order to really, really invest in the unification of our neighborhoods, of our communities, of our, wholeness and well-being. So we really are just rooting for this. But I think what we're all, I mean, what I'm lacking is just some measuring of our progress and figuring out where we're really at. And maybe that is going to take me reviewing some of the numbers, some of the budget numbers that we don't currently have. Some of the money that we've been getting out of these programs now that seem to be working a little bit better. And what's been coming out of some of these networkings too. I saw a list of networking opportunities that y'all have participated in. I know that correct me if I'm wrong, Deputy Mayor, but the AWC has grant opportunities as well, and I don't think the Parks and Recs has tapped into it for a few years now. So, we have access to those opportunities as well. So just some food for thought. I think it would be worthwhile for me, or I think it would mean a lot for me to be able to see these numbers. I want to support you. I want to support the community. And it's just a matter of understanding where we are still right now.
All right, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
The board, right? The advisory board, SMC code 2.50.110. Parks and Recs to make recommendations to city council and city manager, right? They're there for making recommendations. When I was at one of these meetings where Councilor Foster wasn't able to attend, it really bothered me that some of the board members there didn't feel like their input was taken into consideration or wasn't really asked. I'll give you an example, the Upland Park. I believe there's a discussion that it wasn't even brought forward to the board for discussion, or maybe, this is option A and this is option B. That's the reason we have the board, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. And I did take it to the board. I did give them options. But again, I also did apologize to them because it was my first park. And I told them moving forward, the next park that we will be working on, I would bring all the plans to them so they can look at all of the plans.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, thank you everyone for your comments and for the discussion. I want to thank the both of you for your report. It was extremely informative. I just want to take a moment to recognize the situation that you walked into a couple of years ago, Mary, with, Parks and Rec had been running fits and starts for the last 10 years. It was affected very strongly prior to my being on council, but by a reduction in staff. Programs disappeared there for a period of time. And it was really slow getting started. And in fact, when I moved into town from just north of town, there were no programs in existence that I know of course. And so as a result, my only interaction with Parks and Recs was through the pool and the swim team. There weren't other options going for my kids at the time that I knew about. So you've kind of taken a struggling area on in Parks and Rec, and you've had to do a lot of work to get things going, and to see the activities that you've listed out for us that you started or that you're continuing is very encouraging for me. So thank you for the efforts that you're putting into that. I know it's taken a lot of time, and now you finally got some help, and so the two of you can work together as a team and make some of these more efficient. I understand that, you know, as you start some programs, you're kind of behind the 8 ball on some of these things. For example, indoor soccer has already started in right from the beginning, because you started in the month of August, which means all these activities are mostly done for the year, and here you are trying to adapt to that. So thank you for that. Council members have brought up some important concerns, and you know, it's been discussed either in council or with reports to council or whatever, that these are areas of concerns. And I know that you're very committed, because we've talked very committed to bringing these forward and moving forward on all of these things. So I commend you on that, and I want to encourage you on that. I think that our community really does want these programs to exist, and they do want us to make best use of our community center. And so I want to encourage you moving forward to just keep that up. And we as council would love to be informed, as you heard, we'd love to be informed of progress and numbers. You know, how many people did show up for this event? How many kids were you able to serve for the Easter egg hunt or whatever? And, you know, if you pass that through Mr. Sanchez, and he can put that in his report, because we see that every week. And it's encouraging to us. And it's also helpful for us, because we act a lot as council members. We act as ambassadors to the community and for our community and other communities. And so when people ask us, hey, what's going on at the community center, and we don't know, then we can't really give a good answer. So it is helpful for us to know those kinds of things, and we really want to promote your programs. We really like to see kids out there. I can sometimes from my house hear the noise of the events that are out there, and I like that. So I like to hear the sound of activity going on. And so that,
Thank you guys for your time.
all right. Our next item is item D, Public Defense Update. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. With us tonight is Vanessa Enquist, the Court Administrator for the Sunnyside Municipal Court. And she is here to talk about the ever-changing world of indigent defense and some other things that she has teed up for us. The State Bar Association, as many know, recently made some recommendations to the State Supreme Court on case count numbers for defense attorneys. Right now, we're in pretty good position, but by 2027, there's going to be some sharp differences in terms of the number of cases that an attorney can take. And what's going to happen is the further constriction of the supply of attorneys. They're already at a premium. That is going to put more pressure on the system. The less cases, the more they're going to charge us. So we're really going to have to flex on our budget once again. So Vanessa's put together a really robust PowerPoint here to sort of explain things.
Vanessa.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vanessa Enquist. I'm the Court Administrator for Sunnyside Municipal Court. For those of you that don't know, we also provide services for the Toppenish Municipal Court. So it's not just our community that this is going to affect. It's going to be a neighboring community that we offer contracted services for. So the suggested amendment to the standards of indigent defense, if anybody wants to know the number, it's going to be 25700-8. A as in apple, -1568. And the purpose for this amendment is based on the inability to recruit staff brought about by excessive workloads and poor compensation. I'm very proud of the services that are being provided by the city of Sunnyside. I think that we try to even everybody's workload out and provide adequate compensation. So when I was reading through the proposed amendment, they were addressing the primary reasons for the amendments were due to support staff, the requirements for investigators, mitigation specialists, and social workers, and legal assistants and paralegals. Secondary reason was based on attorney qualifications. Shortage of attorneys to handle the most serious cases. Now, I want to emphasize that a little bit more. It's talking about most serious cases, which if you're reading through the entire amendment, a lot of it is involving felony cases. Not saying that ours aren't important, but those are classified as a different level based on somebody with a theft charge. So going on from there, the last reason that they indicated was based on caseload standards. Existing caseload standards did not allow attorneys sufficient time to provide representation that met constitutional requirements. They added applying specific number of credits for cases based on typical time demands. So I'll get that a few short slides down the road. So as I was going through the reasons why they were wanting these amendments, kind of looked like a lot of ours were already resolved within themselves. So addressing the support staff for the public defense contracts, the city shall pay non-routine expenses such as medical and psychiatric evaluations, expert witness fees and expenses, investigation expenses, and any other non-routine expenses necessary for proper investigation, preparation, and presentation of a case. So that within itself, their first primary concern is already within their contract. All they need to do is just submit an order requesting that reimbursement. We move forward from there. Problem solved. So the attorney qualifications, their concern was the experience needed to qualify to become a public defender. All of our current defense contracts are qualified and no additional experience is needed. All training opportunities are provided and funded through the Office of Public Defense grant. So then their last concern was caseload standards. So our current caseload is 300 for misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor cases. Currently, we have 4 public defenders that are present twice per month on alternating Tuesdays and 1 public defender that is present every other Thursday. So going back to the slide where it's addressing adequate time that is taken to resolve a case, they're here twice per month for all the attorneys that are here on Tuesdays, and then 4 times per month for the attorneys that is here on Thursdays. We provide flexibility to make sure that everybody is getting adequate access to justice, so we do allow them to appear by Zoom when needed. So I know one of the biggest concerns is going to be funding for all of this. We do receive funding from the Office of Public Defense, otherwise known as OPD. The city grant, the grant provides funding to individual cities to improve quality of public defense services. So it being a 2-city court, we do receive grant funding from City of Toppenish and City of Sunnyside. Both of the primary functions of that grant is going to be increased compensation as well as public defense representation at arraignment. A third option that I listed there under training, interpreting, investigators, social workers, and other professional services, that wasn't the primary focus of the grant that was submitted, but it is an expense that is included in the grant. So all we would just need to say is, hey, we're going to allocate this much money for training, social workers, other professional services, and we'd be able to apply some of that money towards that specific need. So for the city of Sunnyside, we get 66,000 per year. For the city of Toppenish, we get 16,000 per year for a total of 82,000 per year. That's secured for the year of 2024 as well as 2025. After that, the end of 2024, we will have to reapply for that grant. I will say, it's not in the slide, but they did come through in March or April, did a site visit, and they did let us know that they were, they had no concern with the public services that we were providing. As a multi-court, they were very impressed. They had no concerns. So in my head, I'm very hopeful that if we apply for more money for additional services, if they saw what we were able to do at that time, maybe they'll give us more, but that's just wishful thinking. So when it comes to the public defense scheduling, this is regarding the efficiency in meeting with clients for sentencing resolutions. So one of the reasons that they were wanting this amendment was the time that is needed to resolve a specific case. So that's why I'm bringing in what our schedule is. So like I said before, Tuesday court docket, we have 4 public defenders that are scheduled on Tuesday court dockets. 2 public defenders alternate each Tuesday. We have the arraignment docket and we have the pretrial docket in the afternoon. So that means each public defender appears twice per month. For the Thursday docket, we've got one public defender who is scheduled for a Thursday court docket. And he covers the arraignments and the pretrials. We only designate one attorney that particular day so that we can try and schedule private counsel cases for the rest of that docket, just to kind of ease up the congestion that we're already experiencing on the docket. So just taking in all that into consideration, as well as the poor compensation for one of the reasons for the amendment, just wanted to include that in addition to monthly compensation for public defense services, additional compensation is provided for services to perform the arraignment docket. So caseload limits. This is one of the reasons why they were requesting this amendment. So they advised that the existing caseload standards did not allow attorneys sufficient time to provide representation that met constitutional requirements. They applied specific number of credits for cases based on typical time demands. So currently, the maximum amount of cases an attorney can address throughout the year is going to be 300. They're proposing 120. So how exactly do we get to the point of these caseloads, case limits, case weighting? It's all coming through based on criminal case filings. So this occurs when a person is arrested or could have been arrested pursuant to statute or a misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor. These are either initiated by law enforcement or initiated by a prosecuting authority. When the person is given the citation criminal charges, they are required to appear for an arraignment hearing. At the time of arraignment, the person qualifies. If the person qualifies, they are assigned a public defender. So, statistics. I went based off of the statistics we had available stemming back from 2019. Mr. Gonzalez had asked, what are we projected at looking at? Well, the only way that we can configure that is by looking back on what has already previously been filed. So in 2019, we had 1,984 cases filed. 2020, 1,807, 2021, 1,921, 22 started to see a decrease, 1,592, 2023, 1,418, and as of yet, for 2024, we have 897 criminal cases filed. So if you look between 2021, even though those were COVID years, we were still processing criminal cases filed. We were still conducting all court hearings. I don't know the exact reason why we saw the decline, but it is not uncommon to experience some sort of decline when there's a change in leadership. So that's the only thing that I'm going to take into consideration. I can't say for sure what the reason was. So based on those 2020, the last year, 2023 attorney caseloads, we had, of the 5 attorneys we had Ms. Dorsett, who had 263 cases assigned to her. Mr. Andrews had 233 cases. Mr. Giesler had 267. Mr. McKinley had 284. And other Miss McKinley was 289 cases. All of this information is an estimation only. It's not on point that those are the correct numbers. That's just what we're able to do within our court when it comes to assigning caseloads. So I'm going to bring in GR 42. The Sunnyside Municipal Courts, as well as all other courts, are governed mostly by court rules. So Court Rule 42, Independence of Public Defense Services. The purpose or policy of this rule is to safeguard the independence of public defense services from judicial influence or control. What does that mean? That means we can only do a certain amount of work or involvement when it comes to public defense. We are not allowed to directly oversee, directly manage what is going on within public defense. So when it comes to case assignment is how the court is involved. We control case assignments based on a rotation basis throughout all the attorneys that we are contracted with, and they are based on previous representations. So if they qualify for a public defender, we review whether they've utilized the services of a current contracted public defender and then assign accordingly. So case weighting. Case weighting is going to be a little different than case assignment. Like I said, we're only involved so much when it comes to public defense contracts, public defense case counts, assignments, things of that nature. So case weighting is a process of assigning a numerical value to a specific case type to recognize a greater or lesser workload when representing a client. So when it comes to attorneys that are representing clients based on post sentencing hearings, such as jail reviews, EHM, probation hearings, those are only counted as a 0.5 case count. When it comes to lower value crimes, or what is considered lower value, those are driving without a license, theft third, obstructing, those only count as a one credit. The higher value crimes that were minimally addressed earlier, those are going to be driving under the influence, domestic violence cases, protection order violations, and those are counted as a 1.5. So caseload and case weighting. Caseload is a complete array of cases in which an attorney represents or provides services to a client. And case weighting is, like I said earlier, it's placing a numerical value to specific cases or case types to recognize a greater or lesser workload when representing the client. Contracted public defenders are required to provide reports of case loads and case weighting per contract and standards of indigent defense. These reports are sent to finance director per contract. That was when there was a previous finance director. I don't know how things are going to be reported thereafter. So separation of power, I wanted to bring this up because although I would love to have a solution, I can't. I can only be involved in what court rules allows us to, based on GR 42 that was presented earlier. So as most of you know, we have the legislature, executive, and judicial branch. Because we are the judicial branch and contracted attorneys are part of the executive branch, again, my involvement is limited. So it was asked, what do we do? How do we move forward? How do we guess whether we're going to hire more attorneys or not? I can't make the decision as a judicial branch, but based on the questions that have been asked of me and the things that have been going on, key consideration factors that I was coming up with when I was putting this presentation together was one of the biggest concerns was the amount of cases that are being filed, going from 300 to 120. Since most case filings are either initiated by a police officer or prosecuting authority, I don't know if that's something that the city wants to evaluate. That's for me to decide. That would be at the executive branch level. What I did want to emphasize though is so I've been here for 6 years. So for about 4 years, I was constantly asked about the case weighting system, how we go about assigning cases to individuals or to attorneys. But then the case weighting system as the 1.5 or 5, I can't track that, so I can't create a process that will track those numbers accurately. So that might be something that should be formalized, but again, I can't be involved in that. These are just key factors that I've experienced within the last few years. So any questions?
Council, questions, comments? I do want to make one comment before everybody jumps in, and that is on the separation of power. It talks about the executive branch, mayor or manager. That's differentiation between a council manager style of government or a strong mayor type of government. So in the case of Sunnyside, the mayor doesn't have any additional power to the rest of council. So it is the manager speaking for council on the executive branch. So just want to clarify that.
Thank you, sir.
All right, questions or comments? Ms. Fausto.
Yeah, so the case weighing system, you mentioned that y'all don't track this. So assigning these cases to the attorneys or the public defenders, who's tracking or how does that work? If y'all don't do it, who does it? Where is it kept? Where is it located? Can I look it up? So the case assignment, we use a very complex tally calendaring system. And we just mark every attorney as they're assigned. When it comes to the case load, case waiting, let me go back. So on slide number 13, at the very bottom, it states the contracted public defenders are required to provide reports or caseloads and case waiting per contract and standards of indigent defense. These reports are sent to finance director per their contract. So I can't keep track of that. I can't manage it. I can't do anything with it other than equally try to assign cases to the appropriate attorneys. Okay.
Mr. Beeler.
On the caseload limits,
Mhm.
going from 300 to 120, if we doubled the lawyers, we still wouldn't hit the numbers that we're currently using.
That wouldn't be for me to whether say that that's a good idea or a bad idea. As the judicial branch, I can't provide any sort of input on what the executive branch should do. Sorry.
Ms. Fausto.
Mr. Riley, maybe this is a question for you because I'm still trying to familiarize myself with this. Is this also connected back or this presentation connected back to I think there's a current lawsuit with the ACLU and the state, correct me if I'm wrong, that is gonna require for municipalities to reduce the number of attorneys or public defenders on some of these cases because of the overwork and how that's going to impact our municipalities.
I guess it's a little more complicated than just that, because what they have to do is they're stating that a certain.
Could you speak into the microphone, please, sir?
Thank you.
It's sort of like that. And this is my very vague and horrible answer to your question here, which is that the ACL lawsuit has to do with case counts to a certain extent, but what it actually has to do with is with quality representation of indigent defense going forward. And whether or not the case counts that currently are existing in Washington were adequate to cover that or not. And it was based on, I think, 3 different cities that took as a sample size. I think Yakima was involved in this as well.
The lawsuit with the ACLU is against the county. And that is because there aren't enough defense attorneys in the district court and superior court system. So people are having to wait too long to be arraigned, and that's violating their constitutional rights. So that's where the ACLU lawsuit comes in.
And that was filed in Yakima County.
Right.
The reduction of case limits is something that the Bar Association took to the Washington State Supreme Court. They're currently hearing on that right now, and I would assume there's going to be a decision in the next month or two.
And very specifically by the ACLU lawsuit, it's not about necessarily the representation of indigent defense. It's about arraignments and appointment of counsel at arraignments. So to get very technical about this, what happens is you get arrested, and if you're put in custody, you have to be arraigned a certain amount of time, or if you're not arrested, you still have to be arraigned at some point. There wasn't an availability of public defenders to represent people at arraignments, so people's arraignments are being stretched out. You have 90 days from the date that you were arraigned to go ahead and take things to trial, or the case has to be dismissed in that situation. So now you have to stretch this out because there aren't public defenders available to do that. That's what the basic lawsuit is about. Now, whether it's quality representation or not, that's still up in the air. The question is, do you have enough availability to cover these people at arraignments or not? And that's what the lawsuit is in Yakima County. And I believe there's a corresponding one in Benton and Franklin County as well. So.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Very legalese here for me, but.
So it isn't so much the quality of representation, it's the amount of people available to do arraignments and representation for the first 90 days.
Okay.
So the right of speedy trial is what's being violated.
Okay. Is that going to trickle down and impact municipalities like ours and we're going to
hasn't.
have to look at our budget?
You have to correct me if I'm wrong. It hasn't impacted Sunnyside yet. It has severely impacted places like Benton County and Yakima County where this has happened.
Okay, so what's up for us then that we might have to be discussing this?
What I will say is that we've got a great team that we've got working together. We've got Judge Lee, who's constantly following up on when PC is established within the appropriate time and then getting people arraigned within their required time. In addition, we work well with the prosecuting attorneys, with the police department,
and the jails who let us know, hey, this person's here, we got to do something, and then we all coordinate together on how we're going to get this person seen for the arraignment in the appropriate time. So I will give everybody kudos on that. I think we work really well together to get that done.
Further questions or comments? Mr. Deputy Mayor?
So kind of explain the process. If somebody is arraigned and then later on the case is dismissed, does that still count towards the limit?
Yes, because that attorney has put in work to get that case either dismissed or whatever. I don't want to say that they work to get the case dismissed, but they have put hours in to address that case, whether it's dismissed or not. The attorney did put in adequate time to resolve that case.
As long as they're appointed to the case.
Okay. Do we have a process to say, when they ask for a public attorney, is there like a certain process of some criteria they need to meet?
They're addressed the public defense or assigned attorney at the time of arraignment. So as long as they come to arraignment, they are addressed whether they qualify for an attorney or not. At that point, they are given a court appointed attorney. So as long as they come into arraignment, there's no further delay.
Because usually they, I guess if they could afford it, they would get their own attorney at the time.
And we give them a short time frame to let us know what attorney they're going to assign, and then we reevaluate it at the next hearing.
I mean, it's unless somebody else has any more questions.
I think you got the floor, sir.
It's kind of, I've been to the courthouse right here and I've seen the cases and I've seen, I walked out and they get in their BMW and luxury car and they have a public defender. So what can be done there? Who do we talk to?
So I'll have Judge Lee answer that.
Welcome, Judge.
Evening. I think I've met
Evening.
before. The answer to the question is yes, that happens all the time. So I've been a defense attorney, I've been a prosecutor, I'm a judge down here now. Yes, it happens that people have a court-appointed attorney and then get into their expensive cars and leave. The problem is, so there's a state statute that if somebody's on any type of state aid, food stamps, they automatically qualify. You can't even inquire. There's also some case law that, and there's always more that comes out every year, where judges get in trouble by even asking questions about their finances or digging. If you look at Seattle Municipal Court, for instance, and they deal with thousands of cases, many thousands of cases, they'll have somebody that gets paid $80, $90, and $100,000 to kind of check to see if somebody's telling the truth or require wage statements or look at Social Security. It's never been feasible in little jurisdictions. Because what you would find, especially in Sunnyside, is it is an impoverished community. And so there are a lot of the people that come before the court, they are going to be eligible for court-appointed attorneys. So that's kind of where we're at. So it's gotten to the point, at least in my courtroom and all the courtrooms that I know about in this area, Yakima County, is you ask the question, are you able to afford an attorney? No. Okay, here's your attorney. Because there is a lack of a better system. And it's a cost benefit analysis. If you paid $80, $90, $100,000 for somebody to check to see, you're going to find that you might save a case here or there. But yeah, it's going to be a huge expenditure, a huge waste of money ultimately.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hart, I haven't called on you recently. Have you got any comments on this question?
I don't.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Well, I want to thank you both. This has been for me very educational because this is something that council doesn't very often have to deal with. We don't get a lot of reports on this sort of thing. So it has been educational as to how this process worked. I have heard reports on this amendment. Other cities are talking about it and wondering what to do about it because nobody's real happy as they watch this coming down the pike because it's going to be expensive no matter how you look at it because the competition for a limited number of attorneys is going to be intense. And so How to resolve this issue is something that many municipalities are struggling with or are going to have to struggle with if they aren't now, so.
And I can give some updates on that. It goes beyond, it potentially goes beyond the 120. It could go as low as 54 cases because they also want to weight a lot of the cases that would be filed. Right now, I don't think it's going to pass, and neither does the Office of Public Defense or OPD going to pass as written. They're looking more at, right now it's a graduated over 4 years, I think is where they want to hit that 120 or 54. I think what's going to happen come next year, and we're not looking at in the next couple months anyways, we're looking at next spring, something like that, maybe some
The
decision.
recommendation is July 2nd is a reduction, so.
I think what's going to happen at that point in time is they're going to take it under advisement. They're going to want some new studies. They're going to want really some studies from Washington. If you look at those studies for those caseloads, none of them were in Washington. There are other states. They actually weren't studies. They were surveys. They were asking people, how much time do you spend? And they were saying, well, we spend so much time. If you look at those numbers, obviously they're skewed. You look at when they're asking about probation violations, things like that, you had attorneys saying, oh, it takes us about 15 hours to do a probation. No, it's not even close. So I think ultimately they're going to say, yeah, we want some more work on this. We're going to take it under advisement. But even if they do even try to, I think they're going to start it at the felony level. And that's where a lot of these comments, these concerns are coming from. That's the ACLU lawsuit. It's really Superior Court. That's district court. They're fine in Yakima. Superior Court is they're having issues and they don't have enough attorneys. So I think that's where we're at.
All right, well, thank you very much for that. And again, it was very educational for me and I very much appreciate the information, so.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item of business, item E, interpreting services. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So this agenda item is to discuss our translation services. We recently hired a translation service provider that works with us via Zoom. Thus far, we haven't had any residents take advantage of this service. So I've talked to Councilor Fausto about this and also our city clerk, Jacqueline Renteria, about alternate solutions. I also did a little research this morning with an AI solution called Kudo AI translations that they can translate real time for a little bit less of the current price point, and it's a little bit easier of a solution than Zoom. So I was pretty excited about that solution that I happened to find on there's a city manager podcast that exists, and one of their supporters of the podcast is this new AI solution. So we do have an opportunity to test it out for a little bit for free because of that particular deal on this podcast, just FYI. So a few questions on the floor, I think, are should we continue our current service with this provider, knowing that we haven't had anybody participate? Should we look for another solution that I've been investigating a little bit, or should we stop the service altogether? Because I've talked to Ben, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, I do remember you saying by RCW, we are not required to provide a translation service by law, correct? Okay. But obviously with our high need in the community, I do think it's a great service. And one thing just to note before we start the discussion with the AI service, they can provide us with an audio file at minimum, but they also could overlay a Spanish version of our meeting, which we could keep on YouTube for later, which I think will be much more powerful. And I think more people would watch later, perhaps. So it's just another tool in our toolbox, but so that's how I'll present it. And certainly Jacqueline can weigh in because she's done a lot of the heavy lifting, in terms of finding a translation service. And I know Councilor Fausto and I have discussed a little bit at length in our meeting. So.
All right, council questions or comments on this item? Mr. Beeler.
What's the current cost that we're spending on this if nobody's using it?
$60 an hour, essentially, right? Yeah. And it's basically as needed. So it's, what is our contractual obligation?
We don't have a contract with them.
Yeah.
They won't send one, which is why they are no longer offering their service. They're sent us over to somebody else.
Thanks.
Okay. Other comments? Ms. Ripley?
Why don't we let the Hispanics go in on this, tell us how they feel? See if we can get input from them on what would bring them to use the translation.
And that's something we certainly could survey the community. I mean, we could do it in multiple ways, either social media. I mean, we could do some traditional marketing in newspapers and see what kind of feedback we get, the school system. So I think there's different avenues, certainly. I would love for council members to weigh in on their thoughts. And I do feel strongly that this is needed, even if we had 5 participants per meeting. And I think the real power of it, if we can find the solution that transfers the audio file onto the video so folks can watch it later, or an audio file at minimum that people can listen as sort of like a podcast format that we can put onto our website. Because I think just life gets in the way of things, watching a council meeting. And I think it would be much easier to watch it later. People have kids, jobs, soccer practice, and things like that. So I think the power ultimately, which is why the AI solution got me pretty excited, was there's much more flexibility in it rather than, because our current form, an actual person shows up, they do the translation, and it doesn't live. It just, after the meeting's over, it's over. But this solution would allow for us to keep it later, and it's also on an as-needed basis. So we wouldn't necessarily be locked into a contract as to, no matter what, if you don't use it for a council meeting, you still have to pay. So, and today was my first conversation with them, but I left pretty excited about the possibilities.
Ms. Vasquez?
I have a question. So then Apple Valley is recommending Queensgate Interpreting. Do you have an idea, or have you been able to reach out to see how much their fee is? Is it similar to the 60?
The same, yes.
Hour? Okay.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
I really like the AI solution. I'm looking up their website right now, and not only in Spanish, but there's different languages in there. So it's not going to limit us to just the one.
No, the base package, Deputy Mayor, comes with 10 separate languages that can be transcribed simultaneously. So I did a little test drive today. So you log on, basically you'd come into if you were in this setting, we'd have a QR code on the wall. It would take you to our meeting. They would have to do some physical things with us for us to take our audio and video signal that's able to transfer to their system. Once we have that in place, it's pretty instantaneous. You could do it from home. You can do it. You wouldn't necessarily have to be here at the meeting. So you could do it at home. It's literally check the box for what your language is. I mean, they have everything from Russian to Chinese to, I mean, everything. It's pretty amazing. And then we would get 10 languages with our base package. Obviously, Spanish is our largest language and most in need. And then the voice just comes out. I was pretty amazed as they talked on their side as if they were a council person, and the delay is essentially 4 seconds. So AI seems to be a solution that is, as we know, taking over the universe.
We know what the cost is.
So it was roughly $60 an hour, maybe a little less depending on the system. So it's equal to what we are currently paying. The flexibility is obviously the multiple languages depending on what language you speak, and then the ability to actually archive the meeting and the language. So that's something that we don't get with our current translation service. Essentially, we get a live translator, but we're not able to archive that, and we don't have a record of it for later, which I personally think, and obviously it's my opinion, I do think the Latino community would engage more after the fact, just because, many of our employees, work early in the morning, and by the time you get to 9, 8 o'clock at night, you're pretty tired to listen, or whatever the case may be. But if nothing else, it would be great to have the opportunity to say, hey, here's a file. It exists on our website. You can go and we can certainly hook it up to our agenda and have that, it'd be much easier as an audio file just for uploading purposes. So I think I'm excited about the tool, and Jackie and I are investigating it a little. She's gonna do a little bit of a demo tomorrow herself. She wasn't able to jump on today because my fault. I forgot to add her to the invite. I added Lucia, so I think she probably was thinking, why am I added to this one? So anyhow, that was my bust on that. So she's going to get an opportunity to take a look at it tomorrow.
Ms. Vasquez.
Personally, I really like the fact that with the AI, you can archive it and people can see it later on. But so that's the pro to that side. But then the con is, if people are here in person and they're sitting here wanting to understand and they don't understand, that's also really, really unfortunate. So it's just like you win something, but we're also losing something.
Yeah, and with the AI solution, essentially it's all phone based. So as long as you had your earphones on and you could walk in the meeting, and essentially you would be listening real time. It would be a 4-second delay. And the question is always accuracy, which of course they're touting their accuracy, but I haven't listened to a full council meeting. So that's kind of their selling point is you walk in with your smartphone, you hit the QR code, and you're here. And what they also said is for folks that come up to the dais as well, that'll be translated as well. So it won't just be council members that are speaking English and then it gets transferred to Spanish. So, anybody that comes up to the microphone will also have the ability, or their language will also be translated.
And Mr. Beeler.
Well, like when her dad did the prayer, will it transfer the other way around for us in here? Or do we have to get the phone and do that too?
That is a question I did not ask. But I will find out. I think I do remember him saying that it will go the other way, but I'm not certain what the setting has to be. So yeah, let me find that out because that's a good question.
So is this pay per use? Let's say we don't have anybody that signs into the system. Is it not charging us, or is it just charging us every time we have it turned on for a meeting and we get paid or get charged $60 an hour?
Yeah, it's per meeting, per
Okay.
usage. So, the hope is that somebody shows up. So we're sort of in the same position that we were, at least on the upfront, but I think on the back end, you could justify, hey, we got to keep a record of it. So I think that's the biggest difference is it doesn't disappear into space. And we actually have a physical file of it that we can hold and put on and upload to our website in case there are community members that want to listen.
I have.
Okay, let me see if Ms. Hart has a question. Ms. Hart, do you have any questions or comments on this?
Well, I'm in favor of the idea of being able to archive those with the language, both languages. So I think that would probably be a good one, but it's like you said, $60 an hour, no matter which way you turn. So I guess we just have to kind of take our lumps on that one, but we should be able to offer it.
Thank you. Ms. Rausto.
Yeah, I think that we need to really put our heads around accessibility, right? I think we lost our mark with the other one because but we took our chance on it because we wanted to take our chance on something since we hadn't implemented or adopted any interpreter services ever here in our council chambers. So what's happening, and then I think we're in conversation with the city manager during our one-on-one. I was going back to the event where many farm workers or members of UFW were here in the room. And I remember actually myself going over the door and letting folks know that there was interpreting services because they were asking for it. As soon as I told them scan a QR code, we lost them. They said, I don't know how to do that. My technological savviness is probably at a very bare minimum. So we have to remember that even though we're providing these tools, are they still accessible to the community that we're trying to bring in and engage? If you're adding layers of technology that are going to be required for them to use, even headphones, that has to be communicated. And I think we lost an opportunity to really fully engage our folks because of all of the technology that comes with it, like logging into Zoom, downloading Zoom. I think about my own mom, and as soon as you bring up a Zoom app, right, she doesn't even know how to text. So you've lost a community member there. So it's just really putting our heads and wrapping our heads around strategy and really planning this out. Because this is costing our city money, and we want to make sure that the return of an investment is a good one. And we want to make sure that we're getting more, people in these seats and really engaging with the council and understanding what is it we're saying here amongst ourselves every Monday now. So I am open to all possibilities, but I think if we're going to go with the AI, we have to be very thorough, and we have to actually think how this is really going to impact our community. And maybe it's also us as council members doing our due diligence and really doing some outreach and getting people here and, hey, we have this new system happening, and we're trying to test it out. Come on in, figure out, let's figure out if you're able to actually go through the process without a hitch. And if not, provide some feedback. So I actually really appreciate your thought of, doing a community needs assessment of where are we at? Because then we're going to get to a point where we're thinking, hey, this really cool tool that we think that we thought was going to provide more accessibility actually is not. It's actually providing more of a burden to the community members that actually need it. So just some food for thought as we really continue to explore these mechanisms is, the objective here is to get more people into these chambers
All right.
and understanding what is it we're communicating.
Deputy Mayor.
Is there a way to invite Councilor Frosto to that demo tomorrow so she could see it as well? I mean, she seems to be the real passionate one about this translation services.
Well, you should be passionate too.
I am, but they just don't want to use it.
All right.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, one thing I'd like to explore as well is what does the physical assets actually cost? Because there's one thing to, grab the app and all the QR code, because I agree, when my dad was still alive, I swear the man could not navigate technology, so it was, forgive me, Dad. It was a challenge, so I totally get it. So maybe it would be wise to have some physical assets that would be here. And the thing I'll need to ask is, could those interface with an AI system? Because the physical assets would require an actual person to be here to translate. So obviously everything comes to money, or we're in a budget crunch. So we have to be obviously wise with taxpayer dollars, but also, adhere to the needs of the community. So we'll continue to investigate the less kind of sophisticated, which it's the old reliable that I've seen works great. So I'll also, Councilwoman, look into that as well, because I know we talked about that a little bit.
All right, so thank you everybody for your comments. I know, Ms. Ripley, you have raised your hand, but go ahead.
The Grandview Courthouse, they have the headphones and they have an interpreter there. Did we look into the cost of that?
We did.
And
It was, you pay an hour before, you pay their travel, you pay the time that they're here, the equipment rental fee, unless you purchase the equipment yourself, which was about $1,000 for just the headphones alone. You would have to have someone here to service or provide those headphones unless you were using the interpreter's equipment. But we presented that information to council, having someone here.
Okay, so, from my personal perspective, I think this is a service that is valuable. I think it would serve our community if it is something that they are able to grasp. Ms. Frausto brought up a very valuable point, because so many of these people who need the service are older. They may not be real big on the technology thing, you know, I mean, speak about my mom too. If it's technology, she runs. She doesn't want anything to do with it. So, you know, it's perhaps a generational thing, but it needs to be something that's accessible to them and that they feel comfortable using. So there's an upside and a downside to everything, isn't there? I like the AI, although I'm only cautiously optimistic about it. I am privileged to have friends all over the world, and the AI interpreting does an okay job, but certain areas it's lacking. And, you know, all you have to do is watch some Facebook videos and it'll show you where it's lacking fairly quickly because it doesn't always hear correctly what somebody says, because not everybody speaks all that clearly. But it's maybe a step in the right direction. The other thing I like about the AI is, yes, we have a very large Spanish-speaking population in Sunnyside, but we also have a growing Haitian community, and they don't speak Spanish. They speak Haitian Creole, and, you know, I recognize it when I hear it, and I can even speak a little bit of it because I used to work with Haitians a lot in the Dominican Republic. But to be able to have that available for those individuals as well would be very helpful. And I don't know how many Russians we get or how many French people we get or anything like that, but you know, we do have a very large Spanish-speaking population, and we do need to seek to serve them. There's downsides, but I think we need to investigate this and look into it a little bit further. I think the consensus from council is that everybody's pretty positive about wanting to have interpreting services of some sort. So let's continue to look at our options and weigh these options and see what we can come up with.
Sounds good. We'll continue to investigate.
Thank you.
Got it.
All right, next item of business, item F, SMC 2.08.080, council subcommittee meetings proposed amendment. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, under the current Sunnyside Municipal Code, SMC 2.09.070, council standing subcommittee meetings are subject to the OPMA to include public notice and opportunities for public comment. These subcommittees are made up of 3 council members, and it doesn't constitute a quorum. So this is something that we've gone back and forth on quite a bit. Some folks in the public, we've had a lot of dialogue internally about the necessity to notice these to the public. You know, and I did make a decision recently not to notice these. And here was my thinking. You know, these subcommittees are not made up of a quorum, and by state statute, we do not have to notice these. And my perspective on these particular bodies within the framework of our government is to do some of the yeoman's work before it gets to the council. These are advisory. They do a lot of the legwork and a lot of the work before it gets to this body and to the public. At times, I'm working with the police chief. This body of 3 will be working on some really privy information that, if it gets out to the public or to the media, could put police officers in danger. It could, you know, put at risk in certain situations. There's times when we're in a finance committee, for instance, and there's tough decisions perhaps we have to make that we don't want the media at that particular time to see this, because it can really get construed. And you're talking to a person that was in the media 20 years, and I have much respect for journalists, but I also know we have a lot of young journalists in this market that, you know, don't always get things right. So, you know, some of those things, you know, I'm certainly a person of extreme transparency, but I do feel strongly about this, that we have been noticing them. But I also think it's created more drama in the community than necessary when these don't necessarily have to be noticed. So, Mayor, that's how I'll open it for discussion and get the council's input on this.
Council, questions or comments on this item? And this is being proposed as something that will be on a future agenda for public vote, but that's not going to be voted on tonight. So in my experience on council with these subcommittees, as the manager said, there's only 3 council members, and 3 council members cannot make a decision. We cannot vote in a subcommittee. So there's not a risk of a vote that's being hidden from the public because we're not allowed to make those decisions with only 3 council members. There's no quorum. However, sometimes we need to have very frank discussions, like the manager said, and it can probably not, it's not always best for that to be public knowledge. It's not that we're trying to hide something from the public, because anything that's moved forward from that committee will become part of a public meeting. But sometimes certain specific items are brought up that it's not beneficial for the individual who's being discussed, perhaps, to have that out there in the public. Recently, and we'll be talking about this later tonight, but the Rules Committee, that was a public meeting. It was noticed, members of the public were there. And because it started out public, we maintained it as a public meeting all the way through. It was continued on for several weeks. And so there was no reason to change it at that point, because it had started as a public meeting and it was live streamed. It was reported extensively in the news. I cannot imagine the number of people who told me how often that they saw the back of my head on TV. Humbling, by the way. So yeah, I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole. But anyway, sometimes there's things that are discussed that's probably best not public knowledge. Same reason that we sometimes have executive sessions, because sometimes that information, if it got out, can be harmful. So the state for a while was really pushing that these meetings be noticed, but then they pulled back on that later on. And as a response to the State Attorney General's office, we did put it in our rules to notice these meetings, but we didn't take it back out once the state pulled back on those. So we are permitted to do that as long as we're not holding a public hearing and we're not taking votes that are binding on council. So any other thoughts on that? Ms. Vasquez.
I have a question. So it says 3 council members. So will these 3 council members, can it be switched out? Like, can we switch out within what 3 council members will be in the subcommittee, or is it going to be 3 specific council members?
At the beginning of each year, council members are assigned to a subcommittee.
This is going to be the same as.
So it's going to be the same throughout the year. And then at the beginning of the next year, then it's usually the mayor who assigns council members to the subcommittee. And you try to switch it out. At least my goal has always been to switch it out so that everybody gets some experience in different subcommittees, so that you're not stuck in finance, for example. The idea is that you learn as much as you can about finance, but then you're also going to get into public safety. You're going to get into the rules. Well, maybe the rules so much. That's always the mayor and the deputy mayor plus 1 council member. But just to try to keep everybody learning more about what's going on in the city and how things are decided. So it's part of the education of council members as well. So you'll get a year, but you can't, I guess it doesn't make sense to be assigned in January to a committee and then somebody switches out with you later on. You'll be consistent throughout the year.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Ms. Rose.
So I'm just thinking this through in my head right now, and I'm glad that we're just processing today, but so because it's 3 to a subcommittee, it doesn't constitute quorum, so therefore we don't have to televise or we don't have to make it public, correct? What if there's an instance like the Rules Committee, and y'all were gonna meet, and I know that this type of convening just really intrigued some of us. And I think you mentioned you attended via Zoom. What if something like that happens and another council member wants to attend? I know Councilor Vasquez has attended the economic development meetings, right? Even though Councilor Hart is a liaison for, well, actually, no, never mind.
That's not a subject.
Sorry. Yeah, well, okay, but going back to what if there is an additional 4th member that wants to participate in these, and then it is quorum, but we're choosing not to engage, or we're not choosing, but we're not able to engage, so we're just there in the audience.
If we have a quorum, it has to be noticed.
So if that happens, then it has to be broadcasted? Okay.
So if we haven't
noticed.
Yeah.
For a public hearing.
Well, if we're 4 people.
If there's 4 people.
Right.
Even if it's on Zoom.
Right.
Even if it's on Zoom?
Yeah.
Council members should be able to observe as long as they're not participating.
But at the same time, for a ribbon cutting, for example, it's noticed that a quorum of council may be present, but we won't talk about city business. But I don't know.
specific subcommittee, which is defined group of 3 individuals that have been picked by this group to represent those subcommittees. Those folks can sit and talk. This allows them to talk about things or have their half-baked.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
Who was just talking? I didn't understand what they were saying.
I apologize. This is Derek, Community Economic Development Director. 3 people meeting. I'm just making sure I wrap, now you got me off my. I'm sorry.
Just speaking to
So
the mic.
you have the 3 members, 4th member could attend as long as they weren't participating. You have the 3 members are distinct and always the same because they've been picked by this board, and that's part of what makes that system work that way. But sometimes there's going to be things or ideas that you guys have that you're not really necessarily, you're looking at it, but you're not really entertaining it per se. This is part of one of the elements. Well, sometimes folks will hear things and they'll run with it. And then all of a sudden it goes sideways and the council was never going to go down that path. It was just something someone brought up. And so I think that's part of why, that's the other aspect of this is you guys need the ability to talk to one another and learn from each other and each other's experience, not necessarily with everybody watching every aspect of how and what you're doing. And in these things, especially, it's only one subject. So, I mean, it's not uncommon for these groups to not be noticed. Because anything that's done in that group has to be reported to the full body in an open session with nobody, but the things that you guys don't want to move forward, frankly, that's really the business of the individuals in that group making that decision. Those are the ideas that you're bouncing around. And you may find that, that one's not going to work. You don't necessarily want everybody thinking that the council's thinking one thing or thinking about a subject. We're going to push or move on something that really the only reason it even came up was a counter, perhaps, to something that they're actually working on. That's some of the benefit of keeping the subcommittees outside of the OPMA, because you have to be able to be honest with each other about what you're thinking and feeling and open and everything sometimes, just to make sure that you guys are making the most solid decision. And you can't always do that in public.
Mayor, may I ask point of clarification? Derek mentioned something that with the 3 members and somebody could observe. I mean, I've always been under the understanding, once that 4th person hits and you're talking business, it becomes a quorum. Being at a picnic's different than, than.
You're at a public ribbon cutting, for instance, the example that was used in this situation.
Yeah, right. That's a good example.
Next to each other and discussing city business, it's just understood as a public event going forward at that point. If you have a committee meeting like you're talking about here and 4 city council members show up to that meeting, it is considered a quorum and therefore you do have to notice it to the public.
So if they're talking city business.
Presumption is if the person's attending, even as a matter of being in the public at this commission, is considered a quorum at that point. That's the presumption.
Okay, Mr. Mayor. So Mr. City Manager, or I guess all of us, so what's the process in that case? And I'm just going back to the example of the Rules Committee and some of us are joining via Zoom. Even via Zoom, it would constitute a quorum and we would have via Zoom.
The Zoom aspect of this has not been litigated yet. And so it hasn't been determined whether if a council person is attending remotely to a commission, where that's considered a quorum or not for public services. In person, it absolutely is considered for a commission.
Okay, understood. So what would be the process then? If we get back to an example like we did with the Rules Committee, and there's another one, or maybe 2 of us, or maybe they all want to join, there's some of us that want to join via Zoom. What would be the process and to be able to do that? Does it go through to you, Mr. City Manager?
Yeah, I guess.
Really?
I can real quick. So
Yeah.
I think you have to get back to the overall purpose of what we're doing here. this amendment to the ordinance here, which is that not every committee meeting is subject to the Open Meeting Open Public Meetings Act. What currently was sitting in our statutes was that all of them were subject to OPMA. It's not. And so the AGO opinion and then the case law from 2015 stated that only in situations, let me get this right, where there's an actual or de facto decision-making event occurring in this situation, it doesn't have to be noticed to the public as an open meeting for that purpose for a commission or a committee in this situation. Now, what your question is what if a fourth person or a fourth council member wants to attend that meeting? Well, it's not open to the public necessarily, so you really can't in that situation. If it is a situation where making an actual or de facto decision, like an example, this always is planning of some sort where they're going to approve a permit or something like that, that has to be noticed to the public. And so at that point, then a fourth person could attend in that. But what the purpose of this is to say that not every meeting is open to the public for a committee here as a result of that. So that's why we have to change the ordinance.
And in answer to your question, Ms. Frausto, if it's not open to the public, that means it's not going to be available via Zoom because the council members will be meeting in the conference room, for example. It's not going to be on Zoom. It'll be the 3 council members and whatever staff liaison is involved in that particular meeting. So the Zoom option won't even be there at that point. If it's not open to the public, there's not going to be a Zoom option.
I guess I was just trying to understand the process, and then just kind of throwing something out in theory, like if that other member wants to join, you know, like via Zoom, then do we have to notice it, or they're just the threshold is no more than those 3 unless there's an important decision being made?
If there's no decision being made, then it doesn't be noticed to the public, so it wouldn't be open to the public.
Okay, further questions or comments? All right, so the question here is this one that we want to add to a future agenda for a vote?
Yes, I would say so. I mean, if we're gonna have a SMC in our books and it's not gonna work for us, then, you know, might as well change it and go with what the, you know, state statute says. So
okay,
I would like to see it for a vote.
Okay, I see other heads nodding as well. I tend to agree with that as well. If we have something in our municipal code, it should actually reflect the reality under which we are working. And that reality should reflect state law. So yes, we will put that on the agenda for a future meeting. Thank you, everyone, for that. Item G, draft council rules of procedure. Before I dive into that one, I do want to acknowledge that we did receive an email today. Everybody received a printed copy of that before the meeting. There are a number of questions on there. Some of them I think will be answered through our discussion this evening, and some of them may not be, but we'll certainly try to find answers for all of that. Some of the questions I know the answers to and others I don't. So we will do our best on that. So last week, we made sure everybody got a copy of the draft of council rules of procedure. I think I made it clear that this draft is not based on what was the red line version is not what was adopted in 2018. This was something else that Rules Committee has been working on for a number of years. In fact, it had started working on it prior to 2018 and it was just never brought forward to council. And so that modification to the rules is what we were working on as the Rules Committee, and it was heavily modified through our meetings as well. Things were struck out, things were added, things were moved around. I think it was a very productive meeting, and I'm very grateful to the other members of council who were there for their input. It was very helpful. And so whatever is on there in red line with or red print with a strike through it or a line through the middle of it is being suggested that we delete that. Whatever is underlined is being suggested that we add. Whatever is in black print is not changed. So that is still consistent. And I think it's fairly consistent as I read over it with the 2018 version as well. Some of this has been in the council rules and procedures for quite some time. And so it was due to be looked at again. I know in the past, council, the Rules Committee was wanting to meet and just one thing came up after another and hadn't met. We had talked about it again at the beginning of this year and then hadn't met for some time. And so I'm grateful that we were pushed into this because this was a revision that needed to be done. We did not stick only with the response to the ordinance that came up about the removal of the mayor, deputy mayor. We started at the beginning and worked our way through, and also included text on removal of mayor or deputy mayor, but that wasn't the only thing that we talked about. So council members, you've had a week to read through this and decide what you liked and what you didn't like. This is a proposal. This is not some word of law from the Rules Committee. This is what we are proposing. It is certainly open to changes from council and open to comments from council. So with that, and everybody having had an opportunity to read through this, Ms. Ripley, you are first up.
Yeah, I'm wondering about the budget policies that were not in there. How did they get taken out and where did they all of a sudden come from?
Okay, so this was before my time, Ms. Ripley, but what I understand and what I was informed is that these budget policies were removed in around 2010. I can't give you the exact date off the top of my head, but they were supposed to be placed somewhere in the municipal code in a separate section from the rules. Unfortunately, and I don't know if Jackie's been looking and able to find it, but we weren't able to find where they were in the SMC. So they were moved, but they were not readily available, easy to find for the public or for council. And so we opted to put them back in. And then the idea is if this is approved with these budget policies in there, then the budget policies will go to the subcommittee on finance and they will make suggestions after review of, do we leave it in the rules or do we put it in the SMC? And if so, where? Okay.
Real quick, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, she's got a follow-up question here, so.
Do we know that these are the real rules from back in 2010?
Can you verify that, Jackie?
They were, because the only version that we have of the rules of procedure was the actual resolution that was passed. So I can show you. And that has the actual right there.
Okay, so that was the resolution that was passed to remove the rules, but it didn't have where they were going to place them. So that kind of left us wondering where they ended up. And we felt it was important to bring them back. Okay. Mr. Mayor.
I just want to clarify something. So in 2010, the budget policies were added, and then in 2018, they were removed.
Okay.
So that was just.
I got my timeline a little wrong, but
Okay.
And they are, we were, Councillor Ripley's question, they are the same as, the same budget policies that were removed in 2018. I did want to make a few adjustments, late in the meetings, but we decided to take it to the finance subcommittee so they could take a look at them and then bring them back for any, suggestions or any modifications.
that's correct, because these are ripe for modification as well. So that would be work for the finance. Ms. Frausto, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, the deputy mayor answered a part of it. The other part of this is that it's a little concerning that these were on, the budget policies were part of our rules in 2010, right?
Correct.
And then they were removed in 2018. So what was council referring to when they were in the middle of hearings since 2010? In terms of checks and balances, what were we referring to? What were we using? What were we referencing when we were in the middle of budget hearings in the previous years, since these had been removed since 2010? 2018, I'm sorry.
They were removed at 2018. So I don't think I have a good answer for that question, Ms. Frausto.
Yeah.
Ms. Renteria, do you have a answer for that question?
I do not.
Okay. I don't want to give you incorrect information.
Understand.
So,
All right.
okay, so that was on the budget policies. Any further questions on budget policies? Ms. Vasquez.
Yeah, so I saw on number 5, order of business and agenda. So I see on number 3, so we've always had invocation and it's being switched out to a moment of silence.
Okay, so there was a little bit of discussion on that one in the committee. One committee member wanted to switch it over to moment of silence instead of the invocation. And so the committee decided, okay, we can put that in there. Again, this is something that can be changed back to the current practice. My personal preference would be to have the invocation. It's a matter of past practice. It's a tradition in Sunnyside. We have not, to my knowledge, had anybody come up from a different religion and want to give an invocation. I would not be opposed to that happening if that were to happen. And so, you know, this is one of the questions that we wanted council to weigh in on.
And I have another question. Are you able to tell me what member it was, or would that be later?
I don't think that
That doesn't matter.
it's not that relevant.
On YouTube, it was recorded.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll look at it.
Public meeting.
Oh, that's true. It was recorded. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, you can go back and look.
But if you want to do
Go ahead,
that,
Mr. Deputy Mayor.
So the only concern I have there is that it listed a particular ministry and association in particular. So I just wanted to make it fair to everybody.
Okay, maybe just more like
Yeah,
change the
yeah, we
the
could,
language.
yeah, definitely. We just, you know, like the mayor said, we just put that on there and definitely, you know, open for any discussion and
Mhm.
the whole council.
Yep. Ms. Hart, you had a comment?
just basically, I think what Deputy Mayor was saying is that we thought if there was someone there to give an invocation, fine. If there wasn't, then we could do a moment of silence. It was just give you the option. I don't think it was meant to shut out anybody or anything like that. It was just a matter of if we had someone from the from someone from the religious community who wanted to make we could do an invocation. We had that option. If we didn't have somebody there in the audience to do that, a moment of silence would do. It wasn't really anybody saying this, that, or the other. It was just giving them our community the option. The council.
Right, because here I understood it really different because it's actually crossed out in red and I have a paper saying items in red will.
I
be
see,
removed.
I see what you're looking at, but it really
Okay.
wasn't meant to be that way. I mean, it was meant to have both, either or.
Correct. And the specific organization that is named in here does no longer exist. And so there is no Sunnyside Ministerial Association. And so we have had a volunteer from the community organizing this up until now, and that individual has expressed that they are willing to continue to organize that. When that person wants to step down, I don't know if somebody will step up, but we have had a community volunteer, and I did get some pushback from somebody in the community today who was a little upset about the fact that that is being removed. And I had to assure them that no, it's an item for discussion. And so we wanted to assure them of that, but they really believe the invocation was necessary and important. So, and everybody has different views on that, but, I personally prefer to keep the invocation in there. But, this is a council decision on this. Okay, Ms. Fausto.
If we're moving on that topic, I have a question.
Yes, we can.
Okay. 2.8 city attorney. It says the city attorney may be requested to attend any meeting of the city council. The manager, based on direction from the council, will decide whether or not the city attorney is required for a meeting. Any member of the council may at any time during a regular or special meeting at the council call upon the city attorney for an oral or written opinion to decide any questions of law, but not to decide upon any questions of parliamentary procedure.
Good catch.
So my question is, seems like it's a good catch. I can let you finish. I'll just finish my concern here with Mr. Riley being a certified parliamentarian. It would be wise of us to refer to him, as I have been doing, and continue referring to him for input and suggestions, as we're sometimes struggling to figure out our rule of order throughout discussion.
No, and we had discussed in the meetings
Yes.
that Mr. Riley is in fact a certified parliamentarian, and he can serve in that capacity for us at council. And he had expressed his willingness to do so. And I think in other areas of this document, you will see that he is able to do that. And so, yeah, that is a good catch, and that does need to be changed. Because, yeah, he is our parliamentarian as well. He has his certification.
Okay,
So,
so we're still including him.
yes, so that was a very good catch, Ms.
Good
Frosty.
job.
Very much.
That's why we read it again and again.
And this is why we do our work and then we bring it to council for final approval because we can sometimes miss things as well. In the past, we had in there council members may not engage the city attorney privately without authorization of the city council. We have struck that. That's a hard one to enforce legally, according to our attorney, and perhaps inappropriate. So therefore, we have struck that from the document. But do be aware, council members, that you are incurring costs to the city when you do consult the city attorney out of our regular council meetings. Okay. Yes, sir.
Real quick on the 2.7 city manager, not sure how I missed this, but is this he shall keep? Should we make it neutral? He/she? I mean, I'm hoping Mike can be with us for the next 10, 15 years, but.
Trying to say.
Yeah.
Or they, you know.
Yes.
they.
I was about to say
Yeah.
they.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a good idea.
Like in the language of the time.
What are you looking at?
2.7, Ms. Hart, city manager. We've got a gendered pronoun here. He shall keep the city council fully advised. We want to change that to they.
Right pronoun.
Another good catch. Okay, carrying on. And I do appreciate you guys referring to this by the number because that makes it easier for all of us to find.
Mhm.
The items leaping out to people. Ms. Fausto, go ahead.
Maybe I missed it, and maybe this is where y'all can step in, but I'm just referencing 3.1, and I made a quick note here about our regular council meetings. I didn't see or read any language that indicates, sorry, when we would get the agenda in advance. I know usually, and I don't know if this should be in the rules or where this should exist. But I know we had agreed to it moving up to Wednesday, and I'm still getting things into my inbox either the Friday or even Saturday morning, which is a huge inconvenience to reviewing the documents thoroughly before Monday's meeting. And now we have council meetings or workshops every Monday of the month. So I didn't read any language. Should it exist here in the rules?
This is a possible suggestion for a future agenda item for the Rules Committee. As I had mentioned last week, we have agenda items that can keep us occupied every month for the rest of this year and next year. And so this is definitely something that we can bring up, especially as we've talked about changing our meetings. So the language now says we'll meet on the second and fourth Mondays of each month at 6 p.m. is the suggested change. However, and we're now suggesting meetings every Monday night. And so that language should be reflected in this paragraph as well. So that's something that should show up on an agenda for a future Rules Committee meeting. You are absolutely correct.
Thank you.
3.4.
Mayor,
Mhm.
that section about study sessions is already added here.
Okay. So then we need to look at how that corresponds with 3.1 and make sure we're not,
Maybe have them closer together.
yeah, maybe in the same paragraph. I mean, we've done that in other places in this document that we've combined paragraphs. And I think we can maybe look at that again. Mr. Beeler, you had a question?
Yeah, under citizens' rights, did you guys go into and discuss, because we've done it all year, about the 3-minute rule?
So which is that one?
Okay, so could you give me
Number 8, citizens' right,
Number
unscheduled appearances. 8-1-3.
Okay, unscheduled appearances, citizens may address. Okay, so that is on the agendas all the time as well. Citizens are advised that they have 3 minutes to speak. So the heading citizens' rights was a heading that has been on this document for a long time. And so it is, okay, so we changed that to public comment as opposed to unscheduled appearances by citizens, which was what used to be on the agenda as well. Due to are limited to 3 minutes or other duration due to time constraints. we did talk about that. I know that on occasion, we have, people have asked whether it's a council member or a speaker has asked to suspend the rules. And that is always, are there any objections? If there's objections, it goes to a vote. That is not a mayor's decision. That is a council decision. So that we've kind of been a little bit loose on that one this past year. However, our rules do say 3 minutes, and most of the time, I would say 3 minutes is adequate amounts of time. The time that I felt that it was probably most appropriate to suspend the rules there is when we had a live interpreter in the audience trying to translate what was being said for a large number of Spanish speakers. And that slowed down the process because they had to translate and capture the idea and everything. Other than that, most of the time what we're saying is we can get it done in 3 minutes, or it should be able to. Okay, so, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Real quick on that same one, and 8.1.2 public hearings says the mayor may limit the time allowed to speak to 3 minutes or other duration due to time constraints. Should we reword that where you just said that the mayor doesn't, isn't allowed to restrict the time, but on that sentence, it says otherwise.
Okay, so this is under public hearings. This is not under the regular council meeting. This is only during public hearings.
And
That the
doesn't that
mayor
also,
can possibly restrict the time. And to my knowledge, I've never even mentioned a time limit on that one. I suppose on an occasion when we have a room full of people wanting to speak on the subject, if I get a list of people who have signed up to speak and it's huge, I might say 3 minutes. But most of the time we've left it open. We've usually had less than 5 people who want to speak. And so it really isn't that big of an issue.
Mr.
Ms.
Mayor,
Hart.
the other thing too, maybe in other places, we've also, where we've used the word mayor, change that to chair.
Correct. We have changed that in other places.
And we were trying to be consistent with that. So it was understood the chair is the one who would be running the meeting.
Correct. So when the mayor's absent, the chair would be the deputy mayor, or if both are absent, then the council would have selected a pro tem.
Right.
And he or she would be the chair.
Right. And that was why we were doing that.
So yes, we'll change that wording as well.
Real quick, Mr. Mayor. So on the next one, 8.1.3, it also says, other duration due to time constraints. So I mean, I'm not looking at the current situation, but I'm looking at future situations where we do have a mayor that might, start to interfere in those constraints. I really think we should remove, or we should think about rewording that.
Okay, because on 8.1.3, it does not specifically mention the mayor there.
Correct.
And I have never heard any mayor make that as an executive decision. It's always been brought before council to change that. And in this particular question, it almost feels more like they're limited to 3 minutes or less due to time constraints. So it's almost as if council would be imposing a stricter limit on public speakers because there's so many people who want to speak. So that one we might want to re-examine again in a meeting and have that discussion. But 8.1.3 is not just the mayor's executive decision. This is something that is always should always be brought before council.
Mhm.
Even if it's just, if there's no objection. Mr. Austin.
Did you have anything else?
No.
I don't want to. I mean, I'd like to push back on 8.1.2 and 8.2. I think I agree. Sometimes you may not be the one to take over a meeting and constraint or put constraints around public comment. I know there's been times where someone has motioned to add some more time to our public. I think we're using good discretion. I don't think we're overly, doing it, but I do think that it's important that if our public wants to comment, and these are public spaces, and if the situation warrants it, then I think a motion and a simple majority of the council should be able to acquire them some more time based on the current situation. I don't want this to be reflected to our community as putting more constraints on their time to address the council, which usually is not very many. I mean, publicly.
Correct, and we do have in section 10 suspension and amendment of these rules. But as a point of practice, we have not put up a lot of objection. On occasion, we'll have a council member who objects to suspending the rules to grant more time for public speaking. But most of the time, the mayor will ask if there's any objection to suspending the rules for public comment. If there isn't any objection, then those rules will be suspended and it doesn't go to a vote. If there is an objection, then it will go to a vote of council just to make sure that there's a majority in favor of it, and then those rules will be suspended. So it's really not a huge discussion. And so, yeah, this has been the way council has done it for quite a while. It has worked, I guess. And that's where I didn't really make an issue out of changing it here. But we certainly can revisit the paragraphs. And 8.2 governs more the
Public hearing.
method for doing it. It doesn't really, except for that one sentence, it doesn't really discuss the time all that much. But it's how council responds, how the public responds, and then that time limit is put in there. But I don't think that's the main section of that. We can revise that up or down. I guess that's council's prerogative. But 3 minutes seems to be a sufficient amount of time to state our case most of the time.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
So just in the matter of just being very specific with language, because this is how policy starts, right? You think of something and then you put it here and then you redline it. So just to be as thorough as possible, if we already have another rule that's allowing for suspension of the rules, wouldn't we just be a lot more thorough, even in 8.2, saying not limiting it to the chair to determine how much time, but you can leaving that language there, but also with the exception of a motion of the council and having majority vote to add to the time limit. I'm just trying to think from very policy type of stance of how do we make the language as thorough as possible. We're trying to get it right, so I just help fill in the gaps if I'm missing something.
Council members' response to that. I don't have a problem with that. Because as chair, I don't rule with an iron fist, for example, myself. The chair has no extra authority other than granted by council. So if council votes, that's the way it goes. Do we want to add language to that to reflect that? Would that make things more accurate?
I agree with Vicky.
I don't know.
Ms. Hart?
I don't know that it does. I think it complicates things a little bit. And the way that Ms. Fosco was explaining it all, it got very cumbersome in what she was trying to bring it to. I think we should take another look at it, though. I think that would probably be the best interest, to just take another look at it and see if there's a better way to word that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I see your point, Ms. Hart, but I do think that Ms. Frauso also has a point because it is actually a council decision to suspend the rules as opposed to the chair's decision.
No, I
And so
understand.
I think we can talk about that. That can be,
I think so too.
but coming up with the correct language for it that actually works is always the challenge. Ms. Zabel. Or Mr. Rather.
And 8.1.1, the last sentence there, if you're trying to make this consistent, it says the mayor will decide whether to allow input at the meeting. That may be something you want to look at amending or striking out.
Correct. Yeah, good point. And this is separate from public comment.
Right.
Okay. So that's would be, for example, specific conversation on an agenda item. Sorry, my tongue got twisted there. All right, council, we have a bit of a problem here. We are at our 3 hours mandated by the state. We need to actually have a motion if we're going to continue the meeting this evening. Or we can continue this topic until our next meeting and bring it up and carry it forward. What is the desire of council on this item?
If it was a regular meeting, I would say let's stay, but it's just a workshop. So I think we have time to push it to the next workshop.
Okay, other comments?
I would agree with that.
I think we need to get it right.
I agree with.
Oh, we're not gonna stop till we get it right.
Yeah, we're gonna get it right.
There you go, Counselor Beeler. I like that attitude.
No, that is the goal, but do we need to continue this item to another meeting?
Yes.
Let's continue it to the next workshop.
Okay, so then we also have another agenda item. So we'll continue this to the next workshop. Is that what council's desire is, or continue it to Monday night?
Yes. To the
Workshop.
Let's do a workshop. Let's move
I
that.
think this needs a lot more workshopping. Yeah, for sure. I didn't even get to some of these points.
Okay, well, this is a big question. I think we have to spend some time on it. And so if we're gonna go right directly to vote on it, I think we're rushing it. So I agree with that. The next agenda item H, SMC 2.08.080, deciding whether to adopt that ordinance, removal of mayor or deputy mayor. Do we want to continue that to another workshop as well?
I think we should move that to the next workshop as well. And primarily because there's language that we've put in the rules and procedures here that pertain to the rules. The removal of the chair and vice chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe we should move that as well.
I agree with Counselor Hart.
Okay,
I agree.
okay, I'm seeing heads nodding there as well. So those both will be continued to a workshop. Thank you, everybody. I do have one thing I have to say. I want to ask for an excused absence for this coming Monday. Try as I might, I could not get a plane ticket that would get me into the valley before midnight Monday night, which makes me a little late to get to the meeting. So if there's no objection to my being absent on Monday, Deputy Mayor has already been informed and he will chair the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for that. I will listen to the meeting when I get home.
No
I won't
objection.
have it on the plane. All right. No other items to come before this body. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.